All right, welcome back. We got not one but two shippers today on the show. We got from LeMars, Chief David Schipper. Chief, thanks for making the drive up.
Thanks for the invite.
Appreciate taking time.
Double the ship, double the fun.
That's
Double D's.
So before we get too far into anything, how is LeMars and Plymouth County doing with the flood responses?
We're doing okay. We fared very well compared to our neighbors to the north.
Mm-hmm.
Southwest Plymouth County, down here closer to Sioux City, they've got some issues and some people that are out of their houses and things like that. But as far as LeMars goes, we had nobody displaced. We lost a golf course for a while. We lost an airport for a little while. We lost Little League fields, but we kept our wastewater plant and things that were very important. So those other things we'll have to clean up and fix. But we're doing really well compared to everybody.
Good. Working with like a half-paid, half-volunteer department, is that kind of call everyone in for the weekend? And
so initially we handled stuff with our full-time duty staff, and then when we had to sandbag our police department, we did an all-call and brought in the paid-on-call volunteers of our combination group. Otherwise, it was mostly working with the full-time city staff, other than fire, streets and public facilities and wastewater and water. And everybody knows their jobs up there, and we have a disaster plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm chief of operations when we have that happen. And it's a good thing that, for me, they know their job. I don't have to tell them how to do their jobs. I just tell them what we need done, and they get it done. So it went very, very well.
Awesome. I heard the sheriff's dive team up there was pretty busy over the weekend.
Yeah, they were running to Rock Valley, and then they actually fetched a couple people out of a house for us just north of LeMars. I think they had 8 call-outs.
Wow.
During that thing. And they pulled 6, 7 people, either off cars or out of homes and things like that. They were actually tied up on one, and I used a payloader to get 2 people out of a vehicle in the water. You do what you have to do, but it worked.
Use those resources.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw some video out of Anthem, and they were pulling people out with payloaders. I think it was Anthem, or it might have even been Correctionville, actually,
Okay.
now that I think about it.
Yeah, it's kind of
But you got to do what you got to do.
you get those big grass fires. Well, the farmers will be your friends there, getting the disc out. And
Oh, yeah. We use them all the time. 32 of them at that grass fire a couple years ago.
yeah, I hope it's good. I have that mentally in my notes today. We'll talk about that.
Sure.
But let's go back to kind of what we do with a lot of our guests. Go back to kind of growing up. Your dad was the fire chief of LeMars, Wayne.
Right.
And let's just what was it like growing up, and then the influence with you wanting to get into the fire service.
Yeah, the thing about the Schipper family and LeMars is we've had someone on the LeMars Fire Department since 1896.
It's a good run.
Yeah, it's a good run. But there was a little space in there during World War II where they were deployed.
Yep.
And stuff like that, but they were still considered on the department. So that's carried forward until this present day. So I was fortunate as a youngster that, if I wanted to see Dad, I had to go to the station. Mm-hmm. So as a kid, sometimes your coach's kid's a good basketball player because he lives in the gym. I was a station rat. So, before I was even 10 years old, I knew what every piece of equipment did, and I knew all the guys' helmet numbers, and, because I was there all the time and fell in love with it. And then fortunately, I was able to get on through a high school program, which now with insurance and things like that, those things have kind of changed, but back in the day. So this is actually my 36th year in the fire service this year. So I was able to get on that in a high school program and then carry on from there. I knew what I wanted to do. And as I got older, I looked at, I'm going to go to Chicago and be a firefighter, Right. And that was before Backdraft came out. I was going to be Backdraft.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin.
yeah, that was long before that. So I was going to go to Chicago. And then I thought about going down to Oklahoma State. That's where the IFSTA manuals are made and all the training. And I thought, I'm going to do that. And then as you get a little older, you're like, well, I might not want to pull hose and crawl in burning buildings my whole life, so I better maybe get some further education. So I switched gears and went to the University of South Dakota, stayed on the fire department in LeMars. So when I came home on weekends, and I actually did, back in the day, first responder training before EMT and firefighter 1 and did all that stuff. And then as I was going through focusing on my degree in public administration, not to be so much a city manager, but to be able to do the fire administration side. I actually interned in Sioux Falls in the fire department up there and loved it. I got to ride with the battalion chief, which would be your equivalent to AC, Car 19 type thing.
Okay.
So I got to ride with the battalion chief. I got to go out and do fire inspections. I got to do fire investigations. I got to fill in on an engine company if they were short a guy or somebody ran to the grocery store or something like that. So got a lot of experience up there. Worked out at the training center at the airport. They had, I had my own gear and everything. And so it came time, I applied in Sioux Falls, which back in my day, guys, you couldn't find a fire rescue job very easily. Now everybody has openings, it seems like, and it's tough to find candidates and things like that. And we have the same problem in LeMars when we're trying to hire, So, but the closest place I could apply originally was Rapid City, closest place around here that was hiring. So I applied out there, and then I was in Sioux Falls, and I applied there. And then at the same time, there was an opening in the state fire marshal's office in Iowa, and I thought, boy, if I could land that gig, looking at buildings and digging fires and things and still be on a department somewhere, I'd have the best of both worlds, So I applied at the state fire marshal's office at the same time. Well, lo and behold, I got offered both of them. And I'm married, and I have a small son that was 1 at the time. And so you need a job, right? Because he eats and poops and everything, right? Like your, a kid does, but probably more than most. And so I looked at both jobs, and to be honest with you, at the time the state was paying $10,000 more a year. I've got a wife and a kid, that makes sense. So instead of Sioux Falls, we packed up, went to Webster City, Iowa, where I trained with a guy, and then I had to go to Des Moines a lot at that beginning stage of my career. But to get that job, I had to go through the Public Safety Academy, which gave me my law enforcement degree, which I still have my certification as a police officer, which is nice when it comes time to arrest somebody for arson. I am the cop there.
You have arresting abilities.
Yeah, I have arresting powers and stuff, and full police powers in LeMars. And so I had to go through the police academy, which I did. I wasn't too excited about that, but the state fire marshal, DCI, DNE, all the state patrol, it's all one group. It's all public safety. So you all go through the same academy. So yeah, here I am learning how the, a 321 code for, speeding and seat belts and all that, but had to do it, right?
Yeah.
But in the long run, it was good in the fact that I got the law enforcement degree as well. So that nowadays gave me the ability to be a fire chief or police chief in any community, because I have degrees both ways and things like that. So lived in Webster City about 6 months, did my training, and then got sent to Southwest Iowa. So at the time, I was the youngest person ever hired by the state fire marshal's office. I was only 22 years old, and that was kind of unheard of. And I'll tell you a little story. With Roy Marshall was the fire marshal at the time, and he called me to Des Moines, and I had driven from Sioux Falls to Des Moines like several times, because just like here, you go down and you do a written test, and then you go down and you do an agility test, and then you go down and do your MMPI to make sure you're not mentally out of it and didn't kill your mom and don't care. I mean, I was down there 5 times, and one day the phone rang and they offered me the job, so I had to go meet with Roy Marshall. So I went down there, and I tell the story, and he's like, well, there was more to it than that, Dave, but I always make him mad sometimes. But I walked in his office, and he says, well, you were my 3rd choice. And I'm like, really? He said, yeah, there was a couple guys ahead of you that were a little older, a little more experienced. Well, obviously, I'm 22 years old. And they had master's degree in criminal justice and something else, but they both failed the lie detector test, and you didn't. And that's how I got the job. So he says, if you want the job, it's yours.
Yeah.
So I took it, and I spent 14 weeks at Camp Dodge getting all my law enforcement stuff and things done, and then off to Southwest Iowa for 5-6 years.
Oh, it's Red Oak?
Red Oak, Iowa. The fire department there gave me an office in their fire station with the stipulation that if I got on the department and helped them, the state could have a free office. It was a win-win, because I was ready to get back into the hands-on fire stuff, so to speak, after going through a police academy. And in Webster City, we were there such a short time, I didn't get on the department there, but that office at the time was in the fire station for the local inspector there. And in Red Oak, guys, I got a lot of experience. I mean, we had more fires in Red Oak, and I don't know if it's a southern Iowa thing or what, but we had more fires there than I had in LeMars in 5 years.
Wow.
We had more in 1 year.
And that wouldn't
We
know that,
had, we had downtown fire every year, major fire. We had fatalities, arsons. I mean, it was a busy, busy time. So Red Oak, with the time we moved down there, was a town of about 6,800 people. They had 10 full-time fire medics, and then they were a combination department.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I had my office right in there. And I was living the dream. The first 10 days we were there, I wasn't home. It was grass fire season, and man, I was loving it. And of course, finally, some of the wives went over to my house to see Alyssa, my wife, and Devin. Hey, it's not always like this, and welcome to town. And you know, my wife was like, yeah, I haven't seen him in 10 days, you know, but he's living the dream, you know, and I really was. And it was a young department. I think our chief was 29.
Wow.
You know, and all the guys were younger, so it was just hard charging, go getting, and
Yeah, ready to
a
go
great
get it.
time. Great time.
So, you want a little more added on to that?
Yeah,
I
go
can
for it.
still remember I was only about 6 years old when I really start remembering stuff, but I remember you talking about having like downtown fires every year. There was one videotape we got a hold of at our house, and I would watch it just over and over because someone had came and brought a video camera downtown when they had a big fire one time in this apartment building above storefronts and stuff. And I would watch that thing on like repeat. I'd rewind it. I'd have mom rewind it, and I'd just watch it because you see dad and guys carrying people out and getting rehabbed at the ambulance. They're all sitting on the back step having O2 on, and I was just like, dude, oh my God, that's what I'm gonna do. That's when it started, because you're watching your dad do this, you know. And that was when Backdraft had come out, you know, right before that.
Yeah.
And I'm watching Backdraft, and I'm like, my dad's bull, dude. This is sick. This is so sick.
Yeah,
But
I wish.
Yeah,
I
but
wish I
like-
had both money too. But yeah.
just like, so this is where it all started for me too. But
Yeah,
I love
just
that.
watching that is insane. But
Yeah, we made the news in Omaha all the time. You know, you didn't see it up here as much, but we had a building we pulled 14 people out of in 7 minutes with
Wow.
ground ladders and one snorkel truck, and I climbed a 55-foot Tormentor pole ladder without the poles out
Ooh.
that we threw up because a guy was holding a 2-year-old out of a 3-story window by her foot, and the smoke was just billowing out. And 2 guys, which normally it took about 6 guys to set that ladder up,
Yep.
2 guys got that ladder set up by themselves, and I climbed that thing, got up there, brought her down, and then when I went back up to get Dad, he wasn't there. And I went into the window and caught him by the hair and pulled him out. And, you know, getting a guy out on a ladder that's basically not responding to you.
Dead
I
weight.
got him on the ladder, got him on my knee, and we're coming down, and we were down about 2nd story. And he got into the fresh air, and he come to, and he about went
Whoa.
between me. I literally held him to the ladder and said, "Guy, you gotta listen to me, or we're both gonna fall off this thing." And then I got down, and
Wow.
my bottle was out of air, and
and it-
icicles dripping off it, and I was laying in the street like a turtle, you know. But yeah, it was just fires that we had back in those days. You know, that's 30 years ago.
I say this is mid
unbelievable.
90s, late 90s.
like early.
This would have been 93, 94.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was there about 5.5 years, and then I was doing inspections. You know, I was doing schools, daycares, apartments, nursing homes, jails, and that was good knowledge. But then I wanted to do the fire investigation stuff, you know, and so the position came open in Spencer for an investigator in Spencer, Iowa, and I thought, well, I'm on the west side of the state, close to, you know, to get to LeMars. My wife's from Sioux Falls, so I said, but if I was in Spencer, I'd be a lot closer, and Spencer's up by the lakes. I mean, this is going to be a
Good deal.
so I put in for it, and there was 8 of us, I think, to put in for it, and I got the job. And so we moved to Spencer in '99, and then I got on the fire department there, and that was like a calling, I think. That put me into the arson investigative world. They sent me to bomb school, so I was one of only 2,200 bomb technicians in the whole country. I was teaching bomb classes. I was teaching the Navy Seabees and SEALs on explosives and working with them down in Des Moines and all over the place. I was doing classes. Got me on the meth lab team, you know, and so And I was doing those classes and running meth labs when they first started. You know, we had 3 labs in the whole state.
Yeah.
And then we were up to 3,000, you know, in a year by the time we got a handle on that. And but talk about experience and getting to meet a lot of different people and traveling the state. You know, now even we go somewhere, I can take back roads, and my wife would be like, "Where in the hell are we going?"
I know.
But I've probably been down that road, you know, and so that really spurred my career. I ended up having 2 explosive detection canines, so I was a dog handler, and that got me into the presidential details. I've been on Air Force One. You know, I've been in the limos. I've done all that stuff, which the first 34 times is cool, and then after that, it gets a little old.
Do they have do they have good snacks on Air Force
They
One?
do.
Yeah.
They do.
Not the little bags of peanuts you get, like a big bag maybe.
No. You get a full steak sandwich.
I was say, get the mixed batch in there.
And like adrenochrome and stuff, and like shots of it, you know, just.
I don't know about him, Baker. I really don't, but you guys deal with him. But so then
This is turning into InfoWars real quick.
I actually in Spencer, Chief Duncan was there. They were in an old 2-hole downtown fire station with a little gas station next door that they had cut like the truck down to fit a rescue truck in there and stuff. And so I was officed in the Highway Patrol building or State Patrol building on the north end of Spencer. And I got on the fire department there immediately, and it took me about a year for the guys to get comfortable and get to know me. But, you know, in a year, you have a few fires, you dig a few of them out, they realize that you know your stuff, you help them go do the school inspections and things, and they're like, oh. And I can't thank Chief Duncan enough, because he allowed me to be the fire marshal of Spencer. And gave
really
me an
cool.
assistant chief title.
Sure.
Even though I wasn't a full-time person.
Yep.
So I was over the full-time people.
Mm-hmm.
I was over everybody but him. And I kind of became his right-hand man, but he let me help do the budget. He let me help spec trucks. He let me run with building a new station and kind of help him with that. And I learned so much for where I'm at now from him, by him allowing me the opportunity to, you know, go to council meetings and sit in budget meetings and, you know, some of the riff and raff that you guys might understand or you don't, because you're not in that position or go to those things, you know. So it's a whole different stress world and a whole different thing than just, you know, every once in a while now I'm like, oh, thank goodness there's a call, because I still get to go to calls if I want.
Yeah.
It just breaks up some of the administrative crap stuff, whatever. Yeah, so
I mean, like,
LeMars was a good fit. Spencer was a good fit because I had the best of both worlds. I don't have to put out every fire, but yet I don't have to sit in the office all the time either. So that's the nice thing right now where I'm at. But Spencer, I got to do a lot to learn from.
All right. So, right now we're going through our own transition with Chief. And so, kitchen table we're bored. And it's like, well, how about this guy? And I heard this guy put in for it. And hey, this is the guys that made the list. And what do you think about this guy? And who's your pick? And really, if you were like a captain here in Sioux City, you don't get any exposure to city councils and budgets and specs. And maybe if you work on some of the teams a little bit. But, a unique opportunity to get exposure to some of that. Really be training for that job. It's not too many people get that opportunity. So I can see how that translated.
That was helpful in Spencer for where I'm at now, not knowing I was going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
My goal was always to be the state fire marshal. I was a deputy state fire marshal. I was a fire inspector, then a special agent bomb technician. And the next step was to go to Des Moines and be the fire marshal. The problem was, like I told you earlier, I was so young when they hired me. And if you're actually going to be the state fire marshal, that's a gig for, 8 years or less. One governor change and can change your world too, because they come in and wipe all the department heads and pick who they want, or they pick a new commissioner of public safety and that person picks who they want for department heads. So at that stage in my career, it was a little risky to put in for the state fire marshal's office. And so at the time when they hired a new fire marshal, I was one of 2 senior agents, and we were running everywhere. I mean, I had the dog. So it was all the time, every weekend. My last year with the state, I think I spent 80 some nights in a motel, 50, 60,000 miles on the vehicle. and most of those were at 90 to 100
I was
miles
gonna
an hour
say
going
that's how I met Schipper when he came in and did a class for us. Like when I was like on probation a year on, he's like, "Yeah, I drive 100 miles an hour everywhere I go. It's a state fire marshal car. Nobody pulls me over. It's just like
I get pulled over,
bombs
but
in
then they go, "It's
bombs
you."
in the dogs in the back and just going gone.
Because they were unmarked vehicles, but
that was
we were usually headed somewhere. But yeah,
got the howitzer around sitting in the trunk of the car.
Yeah, you don't want to get rear-ended, so you go faster than everybody else.
Yeah, that was, yep.
We picked up, I picked up a lot of explosive devices over the years, homemade stuff to World War II stuff that guys brought home,
Sure.
and they die, and then the kids are cleaning out the house, and what's this?
Grenade in the
it's a
basement.
grenade. I had an RPG round out here west of Hamilton Boulevard one day, and I remember, I think it was Mark Hansen was the fire marshal then, and I showed up, and the gal come down the driveway with it. Here it is, and we're like, put that down, put it down. A live RPG round. But you got to meet a lot of different people that way, and got to see a little bit of the United States that way because they send us different places to train and go answer things or help with calls or whatever. And so it was a good life, but it's for a younger person. And not one with a family, because now by Spencer, I have a son and a daughter. And when I went to bomb school that year, I missed every football game.
Mm-hmm.
I missed every dance recital of my daughters, and I missed all their school stuff because I was gone for so long, and you don't get that stuff back. But now that he's in it, I think he understands, and I think he understood then that, this is what Dad does. This is how we live and make money, and and my dad was the same way. I played basketball. I was a pretty good basketball player back in the day. And I could look up in the bleachers, and if my dad was there, not there, when I looked back up, I knew, okay, probably had a fire call. And I get it, because that's what I'm going to do, hopefully someday, like that. So it was a whole different world, but got to really experience some of the other stuff in Spencer, like I said, with the administrative stuff and being in charge of people's lives and safety and stuff like that at fire scenes. I got to command fire scenes all the time. I mean, I rode the officer seat in the engine, and Duncan would come in the chief car, and if I had it already set up, he'd just let me do it, and otherwise he'd throw something in at me like, hey, let's do this, or you learn that way. That's how you learn. But it's a different world. I thought I was going to have the option to help pick your next chief. I wasn't going to put in for it because I've only got about 2 years left to go. But with having Devin here, it could have been a little bit of a conflict. And then I think the other one was a chief from Council Bluffs, and then supposedly somebody from Council Bluffs was going to put in, so he got pitched too. We were just trying to help Chief Everett out and help your department out by being assessors for you.
Yep.
So we didn't get to do that, but would have gladly and impartially done that, but I get it. I got a son on it. Okay, I get that. So
Sure.
And if I would have put in for the chief job, then he goes back to third man.
Well, he would have loved that. He missed the back seat.
Yeah. So it's been 31 years married and 36 in the fire service, and it's been a good time. I got a couple years left to go if I can make it.
Oh.
So after Spencer, I had the option to put in to be the state fire marshal, and I didn't because I was like, I had a long way to go yet, So when they hired the new fire marshal, as I was saying earlier, I was running everywhere, and that's a young man's game, and having a family and stuff. I thought, So I said to my wife one day, I said, probably need to look at doing something else because I'm as high as I can go without going to Des Moines, and who really wants to live in Des Moines? I would have lived somewhere outside of Des Moines, but anyway, so I said, well, we got chances to be a fire chief or police chief somewhere. Let's look around. Well, actually what happened was I got called down here for a pipe bomb in a mailbox or something, and I came down here, and then at that time, I want to say Chuck Hirsch was fire marshal, maybe. Okay. Is that right?
Could be.
Mark?
Yeah, after Mark.
Okay. And then, so came down here, and I swung through LeMars on the way home, and I was going to grab something to eat with my dad. It was kind of nice in Spencer because I covered LeMars, my hometown, So I swung through there, and we're having lunch, and he says to me, don't say anything to anybody, but I'm going to retire next July. And this is like November, and I'm like, really?
That's interesting.
So I didn't say anything, and I went home and went to Alyssa, my wife, and I said, you know what? We've never lived in a town with our parents, either one of them. You know, because we always think of the old Everybody Loves Raymond, where your mom walked right in and out, you know.
Yeah.
And right? And so, is that your life?
Yeah, my parents. Yeah, I found about that.
You might want to mute that out, Baker. But anyway.
Listen to this. But and then with my in-laws are moving down here too. So we always say it's a good parallel.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I said to her, hey, you know, Dad's retiring. I mean, how cool would that be? Only if you're game, you know. And she had followed me from South Dakota to Vermilion, where we went to college, to Sioux Falls, where she was from, to Webster City, to Red Oak, to Spencer. And now I'm saying, hey, let's pick up again and, you know, move. And she was, well, if that's what you want to do. And she goes, I know you're getting tired of being on the road and living in motels when you have to. And I said, and I'm going to miss that part of helping the departments out. I mean, I never really did my job for the governor, the state fire marshal, so to speak. I did it to help Sioux City Fire Rescue, or I did it to help Orange City or Spencer or, you know, Okoboji or whoever. And I got to know those people. I mean, some of them I knew their families or their departments. I knew their equipment. I knew their trucks because, you know, you get to know them. You're there. And I was in Spencer for about 11 years. And so I came back down and I met with my father and I said, hey, what'd you think if I put in for your job? And he goes, why would you want to do that? And I said, to maybe worry about one town instead of all of them.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, well, that'd be awesome. But he says, now I've got to back out of everything because he was going to be involved with the process and the new hire.
Chief and all that.
So he actually had to, you know, refuse from being part of the whole situation to make it fair. So he was out then, and they had 31 applicants from 15 states for the fire chief job in LeMars.
For the fire chief job in LeMars.
And I was one of them. And of course, you know, I made the final 5. And then we had to go down there for interviews, you know, and they'd take you around and go, this is Wells Blue Bunny. And I'm like, no kidding. You know, I knew I had a pretty good shot because a lot of the guys in the department I was on with back in the late 80s, and they're still there. I still knew a lot of the streets, obviously, but LeMars had grown over 20 years while I was gone. But basically, when I went in and met with the city administrator and HR person, you know, I just looked at him, I said, I'm from here. This is my last move. I'll put my credentials up against anybody's, you know, and what I've done and what I've achieved. And I said, I know for a fact if you hire me, about 4 or 5 guys that are going to leave with my dad, because that's the only chief they've ever known, will probably stick around and sporadically then start to leave later on to help me out. And then you're not losing all that experience and knowledge off the top, because he had just had his captain retire. So LeMars had a chief, assistant chief, captain, lieutenant. Well, the captain been there 31 years, and he left right before my dad did because he knew my dad was leaving, I think, you know. And so I got the job in LeMars. So as we're getting ready to pack up and move to LeMars, I get a senior in high school that's going to be a senior saying, I ain't going. I'm not going. I said, yeah, you're going. He's like, well, can I live with Dylan or can I live with, you know? And I said, no. I have the job. I make the money. Military families do it all the time. We're going to move to LeMars. And I said, next year you'll be going to college anyway. You'll meet all new people then anyway. So I had a little pushback. And so, you know, all the stuff he had going on. And my daughter, who was going to be in 8th grade, it affected more than him, which I didn't realize because she could sit and read a book, you know, and just be kind of independent, where him, you know, he had to be in the show. You know, he had to be, you know, yes, you guys know him, right? Yeah. So got to be all that and going 100 mile an hour, and I get it. So the best part was we moved down. He got on the football team at Galen, and he was upset about having to leave Spencer's team. Well, that year Spencer went 0-9 and didn't win a game, and Galen made it to the state finals in the Dome, and he got to play in the state championship. Then I was the best dad in town, the best dad in the world. Yeah. But initially moving, not so much.
Yeah,
but
Galen had a good team that year.
Yeah. And so we get down there, and he got to get on the department in that high school program like I started with and things. So that got his foot really in the door then. And he knew what he wanted to do, so that's what he was going to go to college for, and he's going to go get his fire science degree, and he's going to get his paramedic, and blah, 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 blah. So he was set.
Yeah.
I had my first interior fire when I was 18 in high school.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's good experience that way, and, that's how I started, too. So very fortunate that way. My dad was on the first auxiliary fire department in the state of Iowa in 1964, which was in LeMars, and it was basically a bunch of the firefighters' kids that they gave gear and helmets to, and they would show up and help pick up all the spaghetti in the street.
Yeah.
It was like civil defense, basically, for LeMars.
Yeah, it was
kind
pretty
of what
cool.
it was.
But that's in a history book, in the Iowa State history stuff of first auxiliary fire department ever created was LeMars.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But then but was your grandpa then? So your dad's dad, was he on LeMars Fire then too? So like, we always make a joke around here, like, shippers didn't create fire; they just figured out how to put it out.
Right. Right. It
better.
just was a trickle down thing.
Yeah.
I actually named my son after my grandpa's great grandpa, who was on the Mars Fire Department at inception.
Henry Lee, right?
Yep.
So my grandpa was Lee.
Yep.
My dad's uncles and all was Henry and High. So yeah, we got the whole history thing at the station. It's pretty neat to go back and look through some of that stuff. And Henry and I were on when they switched from horses to motorized vehicles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a big deal.
See the old history of the first fire truck in LeMars, and there's shippers on it, two shippers on it.
Yeah.
And if you back up, there they are on the Gateway Hose Company with the horse.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd say cool. Trobos are the only other family that I think goes back even remotely as far. That's pretty cool. I'm sure all the other cities have their own version of that, but
that's how it became. It was
business.
Always a family thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to where they start talking about nepotism and stuff like that, and it's like, well, this career's a little different because those people were born and raised in it, and that's what they knew, and that's how fire departments. There was brothers and cousins and uncles and all that on departments in these smaller towns. That's how they made it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they had a department at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You had to live the lifestyle.
Yeah. So, heck of a career. Been there, done it, seen it. Good calls, bad calls. I mean, everything from explosions. I've been on 9 firefighter fatalities. I've put 11 firefighters in jail. So both ends of the spectrum. There's bad politicians, there's bad bankers, there's bad firemen at times. And so yeah, I don't miss going to court as much. As I don't have to do it as much as I ever did. Every once in a while yet, but very rarely.
So you did that a lot with the fire marshal's office.
Yeah, in 2005, I got the governor's award for fire investigator of the year, and I had put 14 people in prison that year
for arson.
Yeah, and so I was in court half the year. Or I said I would have had more people probably arrested, but I didn't have time to go work fire, so I was in court all the time.
So a little about the state fire marshal's office. So like cities like Sioux City, Des Moines, they have their own fire marshals. They have a fire. They have their own investigation team. But maybe some of your smaller communities.
Yeah, the major communities, you've got probably about 35 that maybe have a fire marshal on their department.
Okay.
And the rest are covered basically by the state fire marshal. Now, of those 35, like Sioux City, I came here quite a bit when I was a fire marshal because of the explosive stuff, or if they just wanted an extra opinion or a second set of eyes. When I moved to LeMars, I've still been down here several times back in the day, and even for Fire Marshal Aself now, to help look every once in a while. Or if you guys get bombarded and you have 4 or 5 structure fires in a row, there's not enough fire marshal office people here in Sioux City, and he's called me to come. Hey, can you take this one? Or
well, and usually any fatality, doesn't the state fire marshal
you don't have to have the state come in, no, but you can, but you don't have to if you've got it handled or figured out. I remember when you had the house fire that killed 1 or 2 over there by Ben Fish Tire, and at the same time they had the fire on West 4th, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came down to the West 4th one with Ryan.
Yeah, that was I was
first due at that one, baby.
I think we came in that night. Yeah, in overtime. That was
So
a
I
bad
met
deal.
at the time. I think it was Lieutenant Anderson, and Forrest was there when I got there, and then Ryan Collins came in, and we dug that one out while the state fire marshal and everybody else was down
Center
at the
Street.
fatality.
Yeah, that's where I was at Center Street on overtime
Yeah.
when we we're doing
Because I
that
think wasn't Fives first in on Center Street or something? Because everybody was.
one. I think
maybe
so. It was
actually,
or sevens
it
or
was like
something.
sevens
or
it was
fives.
it was
Crazy
like somebody.
nuts.
Because
that
everybody
one
was on
came
West
in-
4th first.
Yeah,
and
because that one came in later, and they were
Yeah.
like on their way to the one fire, and then that one came
Right.
in, so they diverted, and people just went everywhere.
At
Yeah,
Truck
that's
3 had
crazy.
to leave ours and go to that Center Street one, and I think like you're right, it was some crazy
I-
outlying company that had to come
Yeah.
up.
It was, because I remember we were talking about all of it, and it was like, that doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. And I think there was like 1 engine left for the entire city because they had 2 working fires,
working,
with one with
working
somebody
structure
trapped,
fires. Yeah,
working structure fires at the same time. So
same
when they
time.
called, they said, "Hey, if you can help, we've got." And they had a house fire the day before, somewhere up in downtown. I can't remember if it was on Jackson or where. So I went to that one, and then I left there, and we actually went over to the one on Jackson, because there was like 3 structure fires within like 18 hours in this city. They were all workers.
yeah, yep.
And I was like, wow, okay, that can quit, you know. But I don't mind doing that yet because it keeps my skills. Because we get fires in LeMars, but not a lot, you know, not to keep things up if you aren't paying attention. And I still go to IAAI and keep my certifications and things. The only certification I had to give up was my bomb technician.
Okay. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, because you have to be affiliated with a bomb squad. Well, when I left the fire marshal's office, I was no longer affiliated with a bomb squad. But, I mean, you can't take away what I know.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't carry explosives in my pickup anymore.
Yeah.
That people know.
carry explosives.
Right, that people know.
Yeah.
I don't have the X-ray machine. I don't have the bomb suit. But when I first started, I always teased people, you know, the only equipment I had in my state car was a shovel for fires and a rope for bombs. You know, now you guys have all this fancy equipment. you
Yeah,
know?
robots.
Do you do a lot of the inspecting up in
Yeah,
up in LeMars and-
so I put all my full-time guys through Inspector 1, but we do everything in LeMars other than the nursing facilities that are contracted through now Department of Inspection and Appeals, the
Yep.
CMS. But we do our schools, we do our daycares, we do liquor license inspections every year, so we got about 30 of those. And we keep that money locally then, which helps offset cost of personnel. Because they're going to pay it anyway, but normally it goes to the state.
Yeah.
But with us doing them, we keep it here. We do our own fireworks stands inspections, complaints, new construction, that kind of stuff. So really there's a couple nursing homes we don't do, but we go with the state when they show up. So we're still familiar with what's going on in the buildings, but they do the write-up, documentation and stuff. But yeah, that was something I changed when I took the chief job there. I took over and started doing all the inspections because I was certified to do them, you know. So that kept that money local, which helped pay my salary initially.
Yeah.
So when you started as chief of LeMars, and how many paid positions
Just me.
did you guys have? Just you. And now what are you up to now?
11.
11. So and that is there.
It's in 15 years, 14 and a half, 15 years.
And is there a command structure to that, or is it
Yeah.
you and like 15 and 14 firefighter or
No,
10 firefighters,
so-
or you got?
I have a full-time chief, which is myself. I have a assistant fire operations chief and an assistant fire EMS chief. And then I have 3 battalion chiefs, 1 for each shift, which would probably be the equivalent to your captains or lieutenants. And then we have full-time firefighter medics. And then under that is the volunteer corps, which I have 2 volunteer captains and a couple volunteer lieutenants. And that's the command structure, so to speak. Yeah.
And then how many people total, I guess, or how much make up your volunteer corps?
We're about 28 paid on call and
Paid on
11
call.
full-time.
So and paid on call, not volunteers.
Well, they volunteer their time because they're volunteering to carry a pager, but
Right.
we pay them if they get called
If
in.
they called in, yeah,
We pay them for their training time.
yeah, that's nice.
So, and then they also have a chance to work shifts at night.
Mm-hmm.
So we always have 3 on at night. We have 6 on during the day right now. So a volunteer can come in at night, paid on call person, and we'll give them shift pay.
Yeah.
So some of those people are making $400 or $500 a month.
Yeah.
Makes
Well,
a car payment or something, you know,
Yeah, it
for 'em.
helps.
Good for
By
them.
answering calls and, you know.
It's like those young kids when I was like 18 or 19 and stuff, working on the ambulance service back in northern Minnesota for $2 an hour. You know how many hours you have to work to make $1,000 in a month at $2 an hour?
Right.
It's like you just lived it. You just lived there. That's all you did for days and days on end. And if I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm going to take 8 hours and go home and take a shower or something, come
Right.
back, and you just lived there. But
Yeah. There's been some issue, but we merged fire and EMS in 2021, a little bit before you guys did, but some of the writing was on the wall because Siouxland Paramedics was going away, and to be able to cover the transfers and things with the volunteer ambulance crew for the city owned the ambulance, but it was a different group of people than the fire. To try to cover those with people that were scheduled 6 to 6, and at 5:15 a transfer comes in, they couldn't take it because I'm off at 6 and maybe going to my real job. And so we merged in 2021, and of course that year we had Ragbri, and so July 1 we merged, and I have 6 brand new people and 3 of us that were on the fire side, and it's like, I mean, we had people on the rig July 1, and I had to make sure somebody was with them that knew the streets and knew how to get to the hospital. I mean, they had their paramedic certification or whatever, but okay, where's the hospital?
Yeah, exactly.
Those things. So, and then of course Ragbri shows up 3.5 weeks later, and we have 21 calls just for Ragbri in 24 hours. But we got things handled. So we went from my first year there in 2010. That year we had 179 calls. I was the only full-time guy. Now with the merge and doing all of it, we're at 1,800 calls last year.
Wow.
Okay.
So, and this year, for whatever reason, March, April, May, we were averaging 6 calls a day.
Wow.
For whatever reason, we had 191 calls in March, which is a lot for LeMars.
What's your EMS fire split?
Yeah, well, it's about 80.
Is that total
80, okay.
responses?
85% EMS, but total responses for the month was 191.
Yeah, and for a town that size
That's
with
a
the department, that is a lot of runs. 6 a days, because you're talking, LeMars is bigger than Sergeant Bluff, but I mean, another department, if they get 3 or 4 calls a day, that's busy
trouble.
for a department like
trouble.
that size,
Yeah.
especially when you're.
LeMars continues to grow. I mean, we're about 10,500 at night. We fluctuate up to almost 14,000 during the day with the influx of workers coming into our industries.
Yeah.
We got great industry base. We always have jobs available. I mean, I think right now there's probably 400 open jobs in LeMars between 3 or 4 different industries. And they pay well. You're getting $30 an hour, which means our housing costs more. Everything costs more. You get but it continues to grow. We have in 2 years we did 291 apartment units, and currently I've got 4 12-plexes on the map coming in. I've got 2 46-unit apartment buildings coming in and 8 townhomes.
And developing.
And that's all to be developed by this winter.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Give or
Where
take.
do all these people? You see these places popping up. You see it in Sioux City. You see it in Sergeant Bluff. I still try to figure out where all the people are coming from.
Well,
it's huge.
our diversity is huge now. I would say we probably have 8 different languages being spoken in LeMars. Those folks are coming from everywhere. We have Pacific Islanders and Mauritians and Koreans and Americans and Hispanics, and we have a whole mixture now of. But they come and they work in these plants and they make good money, and they really don't cause a lot of problems. Other than when you add people, you get the burnt food alarms and you get sick, and so it makes our call for services go up. But all in all, it's going to happen no matter who's living where when you add population.
Yeah.
And then the unique thing about LeMars, you grew up in Plymouth County, you get to know it pretty well, but any working fire in Remsen, Brunsville, Orange City, Merrill, there's a good chance you're going to one of them, or mutual, sending some sort of mutual aid.
Yeah, it's changed a lot since I became chief. So right now, we cover 6 communities automatically, and we have about 200 miles of rural, which is a huge district. So we have LeMars, Merrill, Olin, Struble, Brunsville, scenic, and then 200 miles of rural. So when you're doing fire and EMS for all of that,
Yeah.
and I've seen things change over time where like Owens no longer has an ambulance. They did, they don't anymore. You know, Merrill, they don't have an ambulance sometimes, and sometimes they do. Or they only have 2 firemen in town. You know, you were one of the 2 at one point.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they're still at 2.
Yeah.
Even though you've gone.
I think by the time I left, my brother was like 18 or 19. So
yeah, he was one.
good
But,
enough, but-
you know, during the daytime, he's working.
Yep.
So they have 1 or 2, you know, during the day if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we have to supplement that. I mean, what other choice do you have? And it makes it a little tough for response times when you're running 17 miles
Yeah.
and you're first in.
Right.
For whatever. Oof. You know.
Yeah, and actually I remember this. So advice came from Mike Wise when I was young, and he was like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like Merrill, Sioux City, Chicago, like the fire is still the same. It's still just as dangerous, and responding with, you know, those low number of volunteers or first responders, it's dangerous. And so then it's still it doesn't matter if you're Owens or LeMars or whatever. It's still the same, and there's a standard of right word for this, but just a standard of tactics and everything.
Well,
that
it's
go into it.
it's a little different on the risk management side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always said that. I always gave back in the day, even here. You know, I'd give Hirsch a bad time, or I'd give Jim or Teely a bad time when he was in the fire marshal's office and all. I said, you guys, you're always making calls on fires and getting them figured out because you only have a room and content fire because your engine companies are getting there and knocking it down. I said, I'm pulling up the house that was burning for 23 minutes before the fire truck pulled out of the station, and I got to try to figure out what happened as the fire marshal.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to
It's a
little rural
different animal.
Iowa where the truck didn't leave the building for 13 minutes.
Yeah.
I said, 13 minutes, you guys are going back to the station. You know, so I said, there's a huge difference in determining origin and cause with a fully engulfed building compared to a room and content. So I always gave these guys a bad time.
Well, even
down
with-
here, like, you guys could figure these out because, you know, you got water on it in 3 minutes.
Yeah,
So quick.
Well, even you look at some of the volunteer departments that, you know, you have to look, like you said, it's that risk analysis, you know, and it's a different animal when we're showing up and we got 12 to 15 guys and we know they're coming and we know the water supply and we know it's several minutes. And we're used to doing interior attack and everybody knows their job and we know how to operate. You pull up on scene with
Two
you know,
guys.
2 guys, 3 guys, or 4 guys, or maybe 2 different departments, 15 minutes into a fire, and you got 1 senior guy and 2 kids that are brand new. Are you going interior? It's
Well,
it's
you
a
can't- and
defense.
that's
You know,
where I
that's
said the
it's
risk
like you've got to
management
sit there and be like, well,
Or
we
the
went
department you're mutual aiding with doesn't have anyone that can put an air pack on, so they show up with the rig and they here we go.
Yeah,
Here you go.
exactly. It's a different it's a different animal altogether
really
when you get
is.
out there. But you know, I took a class and because you used to say like volunteer and paid professional, and somebody, you know, corrected it was like that we're all professionals. You know, you could say paid and you could say volunteer. That's an okay thing to say. You could say volunteer, but everybody's a professional because at the end of the day, fire doesn't care.
It doesn't pick and
care.
choose.
It doesn't care if you're a guy or girl, what nationality, volunteer, career. It doesn't matter. It's if fire's going to treat you the same. So you just you have to weigh those that risk analysis and understand what you're getting into before you do it.
As a couple of the worst car accidents I've ever seen are still like 18, 19 in Merrill on the interstate running through there. Some bad weather and man, there's some nasty wrecks.
The rural departments get horrible. Like you know, they get awful wrecks.
Well,
all
we
the time
started
and stuff,
doing
you know?
a lot of mental health stuff now, like everybody has, and you know, we're talking about the 411 system earlier. I was with Ryan over here, Lieutenant Baker, about you know your 411 system now to get benefits and mental health, and you got to prove that you have mental health issues and PTSI, as I call it, not PTSD, because I call it an injury, not a disorder, but. We started doing a lot of that because the difference between here and even like LeMars is if you have 3 bad calls 3 days in a row, your shift only caught 1 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Where on our department, you could be first guy on that truck or engine
all 3 times.
all 3 times.
Yeah.
So I remember, you know, we had a bad accident that killed a young girl. The next day, we had a guy that had deceased in a trailer house for a couple of weeks. And then the day after that, we had a guy die in a grain bin. And I had pretty much the same crew because, you know, the guys that make the truck can make it during the day
Yeah.
on all 3 of those calls right in a row. And I said, wow, we've got to start doing a little bit better job of caring for our people and taking care of our own, because, you know, back in my day when I started, if you couldn't handle it, you were a wuss and get out of here. I mean, they stick your face in it. If you can't handle it and you're puking, leave.
Yep.
I mean, I hate to say that, but that's how it was. And we shouldn't have done that. You can't be that way with people. You know I have some PTSD or PTSI, but you can be functional and still do a job and be a good thing for society. You really can. So we don't want to put these people out to pasture. You want to make sure you're taking care of them. And so I actually have all my spouse's emails now of my guys and gals. I have phone numbers, all that. So every once in a while I might, hey, bad couple days for LeMars Fire Rescue. We had a fatality here and we had a fatality there and we had this. So, you know, I don't get to see. That's the only problem I have. My full-time guys I see, and you guys see each other and you work with each other. You know if somebody's having a bad day on your shift. I mean, there's no doubt that so-and-so's pissy today, and maybe it's because of something at home, maybe it's because of something at work or whatever. I don't get to see those people at night. So if they're not sleeping or they're up pacing the hallway or they're just being a total jerk to their wife, I don't get to see that. So I'll email, and I started doing that, and you wouldn't believe. I mean, the first time I did that, within an hour, I got a response of, hey, so-and-so is acting like a damn jerk, and I don't know what's going on. Well, I'm thinking back, and I'm looking at the run sheets going, he's on every one of these calls. Get him in here and bring him in, and, you know, you set him down and you say, hey, what's going on? And they'll tell you, hopefully. Or you just say, hey, you know, I don't want you on the first rig tomorrow. Let's take a little break here. And, you know, and I've had to do that, and it's leveled out, fortunately for us. Our city has a great EAP plan. I've sent several to counseling, but we would have never done that back in the day.
No. Well,
And you might be old enough, Phil, to know that we just didn't do it.
no, you didn't.
It is what it is, and get back on the truck. And if you can't handle it, maybe you should go be a police officer. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm a police officer yet, so
Well, and
we always say that.
And I think
you know.
what a couple of things that like people forget is that I mean, not that we don't all see bad calls and say, you know, I can 22 years on just about, you know, there's things that, you know, it's that, you know, I wish my mind could forget the things that my eyes have seen, right? But it's when you go into the smaller departments, smaller towns. So not only do those guys go on that one guy, the same crew or whatever, go on all three of those calls, there's a good chance that they know one of those people, or it's that person's cousin, or it's that person's neighbor and stuff, you know. And so because the communities, the departments, it seems like a lot of the volunteer departments are so much closer knit because there's so much more family ties within those. You know, the community is smaller, so people rally around that fire department, and it's really close knit. And I think the smaller, you know, you look at it like a George or a Little Rock, even I tell you what, Little Rock Fire Department for the little town of Little Rock, that's one of the tightest knit group of people I think I've ever seen and prideful of their department. But anything bad affects that whole community because they know everybody. So, you know, when you guys have the chance of that stuff happening or knowing that, you know, so it hits those guys. I think it hits those guys in that community so much
that's
harder
a great
than
point,
what it does.
Phil. I mean, we've actually had pulled up on a scene I can remember, and I was on the department. I wasn't like the chief, and it was one of the guy's daughters.
Yeah.
In the wreck. Now, I'm not saying that can't happen in Sioux City. It's a possibility.
Right.
But it's a bigger chance.
Yes.
Down in a smaller town, and yeah, we had to like take him aside. He's no good.
Yeah.
That's not the guy running the extrication equipment today, even though he wants to because it's his daughter in there. You can't do that, you know. So, yeah, that's a very great point.
That was one of the main things. So I was part of the Spencer support operations staff in high school, and that was like one of the main stipulations they came up with was you couldn't go to any rescue calls as like a 16-year-old because half the wrecks they would go to would be kids I knew at high school
kids.
And so like that was a good thing to not be exposed to like you guys were back in the day, pulling your own classmates out and putting them in body bags and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have fared too well with that probably.
I did that at 16.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
I had a
good
guy
changes over time.
I had a guy that committed suicide that sat ahead of me in class.
Oh.
At Little LeMars Galen.
Yep.
You know, shot himself in a parking lot, and we were first ones there, my dad and I, and you know, you look in the car and go, that looks like Ben's car, you know, and you walk up, look in and go, oh. And that's when I knew I could handle it.
Yeah.
That was my first, besides TV, of, oh, wow, you know. So, and since then I've done everything. One of the worst ones was Albert City with the 2 firemen that were killed in that explosion. I was actually in Red Oak, and Roy Marshall, the state fire marshal, had a home in Villisca over by the lake. And he called me up that morning and said, what are you doing? And I said, just hanging out, you know, Red Oak on Saturday. He says, get in your state car, get over to me, we're going to Albert City, we got 2 firemen killed. And what? You know, I'm 22 years old, and I'm thinking, oh no. And Albert City's up by Storm Lake and LeMars, and I, you know, water fights and all the things we did, I'm thinking, I'm gonna know people. And I remember getting in the car and screaming up here to Albert City and seeing Chris Payne, the investigator at the time, Ron Wilson, the fire chief from Storm Lake, and all those people I grew up with as a kid on the curb in the water, crying. Wow. And literally went around and cleaned all that up with a couple guys. And I remember Eric Fox, Lieutenant Fox, was on here. I think he just got on her. And I made the front page of the Sioux City Journal standing next to the fire marshal, pointing at the piece of line that got hit on the propane tank that was where the leak was. I was on the front page of that paper. And this is how it works, right? It's the brotherhood. He made a point to call me and say, hey, big brother, you doing okay? I said, yeah, why? He said, I see you on the front page of the paper at that explosion. And I'm like, oh, really? Because I didn't even know they took the picture. You know, I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, what the hell were you doing up there? So I'd give the boss a ride, which, you know, I'm driving like I drive, and he's got his hands on the dash looking at me, and I said, well, you've been in the office too long, Roy. This is how we do this out here. You know, when we're going to fire, we go.
I get that.
I remember that day. He goes, I said we were going to go fast, Schipper, but I didn't mean that fast, you know, but we made it up there, and very tragic deal, you know, and then went back for all the funerals and stuff, and just as a young kid, I got a lot of experience real fast. I could write a book, but most people would think it's fiction, you know, but it's all true, you know, the things you've had to do and see and pick up and clean up and oof.
Well, what are some more, we'll do, when we ask this question, I say, like, you know, some funny stories, maybe some memorable and some impactful ones, you know, as your time with Chief and LeMars that you can remember over the last 15 years.
LeMars or just in general?
Let's just do LeMars.
Okay, LeMars. So when I first moved to LeMars, everybody knew me as the state guy, right? Is he really a fire chief? Because he's been the state fire marshal investigator bomb guy. So I thought, when I moved to LeMars, I thought, you know, it'd be nice to have a couple good calls to get the crew comfortable with me and, you know, build their confidence in me, showing them I know how to set up a scene and run incident command and all that. Because I was doing it in Spencer, but they didn't see that. And I think my first month in LeMars, we did every stupid call you could think of. I had the roof collapse at the ice cream parlor and trap a guy. I had a meth lab and a U-Haul truck on the highway. I had 2 house fires at the same time. I mean, they made T-shirts because they're a lovable group like you guys are, right? They made T-shirts with all the different things we had in like my first 2 or 3 months on the job. And I was just like, holy cow. And I remember my mom, when my dad retired, took him to Okoboji just to get him away. And of course, we're making the news, and I'm on camera. Hi, Dave Schipper, you know. And I remember my father calling me, going, "Son, you can slow down. We did all that in my career too, but we did it over a span of 40 years. You know, you have to do it all in the first month or two." So, everybody got a kick out of that. So they even made T-shirts that said "Little Chicago Fire Department." And I was basically Bull, you know.
That's funny.
They made everybody had an orange T-shirt, and I told them they'd look good being grease rags, but they all had their orange T-shirts with all the different things we had in the first like 2 or 3 months I was in LeMars, and it was a little absurd. I mean, we had an ammonia leak at Cloverleaf, and we had just all kinds of stuff that you'll get over time, but you shouldn't get in 3 weeks. So
It was awesome being back for the summer after getting all my fire certs and stuff and EMT, and we're going to fatalities and building collapses and fires and that like first month. I was like, oh yeah, man.
Getting some experience.
yeah, so but that gave the group real confidence in me, and so I asked for it, but then I had to tell the good Lord he could stop. Okay, we're good, we're good now. So I mean, I've had lots of good times being back. You rekindle old friendships that you had, and just get to be back in your hometown. And it's a nice town. It's a good place to raise a family. And
LeMars is beautiful.
Yeah, it's been good, and then for whatever reason, I have a 31-year-old or whatever you are now, and 27-year-old, and I have a 9. All of a sudden, whoops, what's this all about? And when that first happened, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then I come to realize it gave me a second chance, because I missed so much with Devin and his sister Josie that I'm not missing with Evie now, because now if I'm gone, it's my choice. Yeah. If I want to go to a class or want to go teach somewhere, or I want to stay in a motel, it's my choice. Where before it wasn't. It was, you got the bomb dog, or you're a bomb tech, we need you in Decorah, or we need you in Winterset, and you go. Where now it's my choice. So I get to put her in bed every night if I want, and I get to go to her stuff and things. So it was like I got a second chance at life to actually see a lot of my kids' stuff, where the first two I missed a lot of it.
All right, so with the transition of getting some more paid guys and some more chiefs, are you able to take some more nights off too and let some of your ACs and BCs run command?
I am in the winter.
Okay.
But like right now, not so much.
Not enough time. Yeah.
During COVID killed me. Everybody went and bought a camper, and now they use them. So weekends in the summer are really bad. So my wife knows. Don't even ask me about going anywhere really on a weekend, because it's probably not going to happen. When I've got added EMS, and you look at your board and you've got 38 people and 25 of them are gone.
Yep.
Whoa. And then you send an ambulance to Sioux Falls. Well, there's 2 more. So the weekends and summertime still really tough, Ben, that I still have to answer calls. And I don't go to every ambulance call, because the duty staff will take the initial 911. But any second ambulance call, then I got to go make sure so it's covered, or I got to do it. And any structure fire, I go just for the fact of staffing.
Yep.
But my 2 assistant chiefs and one of my battalion chiefs now I have over the shifts as supervisors that actually respond from home. And I go if I want, or I don't go if I don't want to, which has alleviated some of it. But now we've went from 200 calls to 1,800 calls, so you're getting called in just as much as you ever did. But,
is Mike Weiss still there?
Yeah, he's going to be retiring December 16th.
Okay.
So I'll be looking for a new EMS chief or supervisor or something like that. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that position yet.
So when we moved to Red Oak, when I was wee little, Mike was on the fire department in Red Oak, and his son's a chief there now.
Battalion chief there.
So Chavis.
Yeah, I went to school with Colin.
So that's where I met Mike, was in Red Oak, and he was a great paramedic, firefighter. We became good friends, and then when I moved to Spencer, we stayed friends. And then he actually went to Omaha Fire.
Yep.
And then when I got the job, he actually applied for the assistant chief job in LeMars under my dad, and they hired somebody else. And then when I got here, I had to hire an assistant chief, and he put in for it. And I'm like, you know what? I know him. I know his work ethic. Oh yeah, and he, he's a great paramedic. He knew all the EMS stuff, and that's what I was looking for. So yeah, that was a good fit. Mike's been, I think I hired Mike in 2012, so about 12 years. But he's got like 30 in the fire service. Overall. So yeah, he'll be leaving in December.
Good for him.
And good for him. I'm happy for him. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I got a couple years yet. So we just recently in LeMars, when you ask about LeMars, we just ordered a new ambulance. I just ordered a 110-foot platform aerial. And we're working on a new fire station.
Very nice.
Hopefully next November we'll put a fire station on the ballot for the public to build a firehouse house.
Yes.
Now that we have people living there, you know, we've taken our building that originally was an REC building, rural electric building, and we've made it work. And I got a bedroom and a closet and a bedroom in here and a bedroom in there and a kitchen that we made and all the appliances and stuff, but it's not set up conducively for, you know, so I've explained to the city, we need to build a firehouse that actually has the dorm rooms and the kitchen and the living room and an exercise room and offices and then apparatus bay. So the city okayed it. We bought ground across from Mauer Funeral Home on 12th Street, just west of our new football field that got redone.
Yep.
It's a big open lot in there. We bought 2.2 acres in there, and that's where the station will be located.
That'll be perfect.
The one we have downtown we'll keep, and then that Station 2 that's up by the swimming pool on Westmar's old campus, we'll sell or get rid of or keep for the city. I don't know. They'll decide what they want to do with it. And we'll still have 2 stations because of
The tracks, right?
the train tracks, and our ISO score is better with engine company locations and things. And you know what's kind of funny is that ISO stuff, I've always been fascinated by that, because they say they want an engine company within, you know, 1.5 miles, 2 miles of everywhere in the city. So that's how we build Station 4 where we do, and Station 8 where we do. That goes all the way back to my great Henry in the 1890s, because that's how far
the
a horse could run before it got tired.
Yep. Yeah, it literally, that's literally, and they still use the
They
same,
still use that
same formula
thing.
today. Yep.
And I guarantee you the horses we got down there now will run a lot farther than 1.5 miles or 2
Probably,
miles.
yeah.
You know, and faster.
Yeah.
But that's how they do their logistical stuff. And so, yeah, we have 2 stations. You know, if we were totally full-time, we could get by with 1. But since we're not, to keep the response time and distances, we have 2 stations. But the train is a huge deal.
Yeah.
When you get 10 train Tuesday,
Well, yeah, LeMars
that
is
cuts the town in half. We have that
miserable.
main UP line that runs through there, and yeah, it's busy. It's not so busy right now though.
So what's your
'Cause all the
apparatus?
tracks are washed out.
Yeah.
So what's the
Yeah.
full lineup with medic rigs, grass rigs, tankers,
So we
engines,
have
aerials?
now we have 3 medic rigs or 3 ambulances, rescues. We have 2 at the main station, 1 on the other side of the tracks. One's 4-wheel drive, great big one. It's actually, when we ordered it, I thought this thing's a monster, but in the winter we've taken it out in the
yeah.
field. It's actually been pretty handy. And then we have a rescue engine that is 1,500 gallon per minute pumper with 750 gallons of water, and all our extrication tools and struts and airbags and stuff are on that. And then we have a Quint, which is a 55-foot, 1,500 gallon per minute pump that we run as an engine, but it's got the 55-foot ladder on the top. That's our first out to most structure fires, even in the country, which is nice because we have a ladder in the country now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have an 85-foot platform, which is a Quint as well. It has 400 gallons of water on it and all the hose, and it's a 2,000 gallon a minute pump. And then just recently here, the last truck I purchased was a pumper tanker, and it's got 2,000 gallons of water on it and a 750 pump, and that's a nice little truck because it pumps and rolls.
Yep.
Or you can put it on a hydrant. It's got 2,000 gallons of water on it, so it gets a lot of work done. And then I have another tanker tender that's got a 300 gallon per minute pump on, 2,000 gallons of water. And then we have 2 grass rig pickups that have 250 gallons apiece on them. And then we have 4 command vehicles, 1 Tahoe, Durango, and 2 pickups. And then we have our hazmat trailer, which has all our level A suits in and all our confined space equipment and stuff like that. And then we have 1,000 gallons on wheels of foam on a foam trailer that we have. And then I have a reserve engine that's an old 85 Pierce that looks like the old cab over Fords that Sioux City had, 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah.
That baby pumps and rolls, which is nice, but it's reserve. It's not in service. We use it if we would have to, or go get it to, fill in for another truck like you guys do when
Sure.
something's in the shop or broke. And then I also have a trailer that has a 10K generator on it that's mobile that will run a nursing home or a school. We actually used that a few years ago up in the Sioux Center when they had a fire, took out their water system. So a lot of people don't know that, but it ran the whole town of Sioux Center so they could have fire hydrants and flush toilets for 3 days.
I didn't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was up there, even hooked up to their system until they got things fixed. And then recently we used it at Galen when they did the new cafeteria addition, they had to move all their electrical. So we pulled that trailer up out back and ran everything into it, and they took down their main transformer and it ran the whole school for 3 days. It's good exercise for them, you know.
Yeah.
But those are things you just don't get rid of because, I mean, we have stationary generators at our stations. But like if we had to set up somewhere and use that at the event center or something as a shelter or something, we've got a generator that's on wheels. And so we got a lot of equipment.
Absolutely.
We got a lot of equipment. I've got a lot of good people, you know, that are really, there's a lot of them that are in it, fully in it. And, you know, just like your department, you have guys that like other things more than some. You know, so I got guys that don't mind car accidents and extrication equipment and guys that don't want to do that. You know, or I got guys that want to go in a burning building, and then I got guys that want to be pump operators, and I got guys that want to run the aerial, and, you know, but all in all, I make everybody do everything. So I would say my definition of intelligence is knowing a little bit about a lot of stuff. We have intelligent people, but we also have some pretty good experts in some areas. It's because that's what they love and that's their niche.
You got a couple really good rope guys up there.
We do. We got some good rope guys up there, and they're getting more people interested in that stuff now too, you know. So there's things we do in our community or have to do that communities our size don't have to do. And I always tell people the thing about LeMars is it has all facets of life. So you have residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and we got to take care of all those. You know, I wouldn't do confined space if we didn't have the industry demand for it for confined space rescue.
Well, same with hazmat too.
Well,
There's
yeah,
a
I
lot
mean,
of
we've got
places that have-
17, let me think, 20 techs out of our 38
And that's pretty
technician
impressive
level.
for a department your size to
And
have.
a lot
know,
of that's
we're
voluntary, where the guys went on their own
Yeah.
to tech school.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we're still
Show the
calling Sioux
initiative.
City. That's our contracted hazmat team. But I've got 1 million gallons of ammonia in town. There's a lot we can do before you guys muster and get up there, you know, to mitigate some things and make it a little easier for everybody, or to supplement your team, which we've done on different incidents already, real incidents, you know. And so just because of the demands of the city, we've had to do those things to keep up, you know. And I don't think people understand how these departments have become truly all hazards departments. You know, our equipment shouldn't say fire rescue on it. I mean, let's get real. You know, it should say emergency services, because you do this much fire and then you do this much other stuff.
Exactly.
You know, so I said, if fire was all we did, this would be a great gig, you know, because it's about 20% of what we do.
Yep.
When you throw in the EMS and the specialty stuff, fire is a really smaller part of what we do.
Well, we just saw it this week, and all the other communities around.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to take a little time to talk about that, you know, because there's a lot of people hurting right now. And if we can help in any way we can, everyone needs to get on board, because that's our job, is not only what we're doing, but just as Iowans and Americans, we need to come together now, you know. That needs a little bit more of that, and sometimes it takes tragedy to do that. So hopefully we can do that for these communities. But we just all have been seeing it where you're using payloaders to get people out of water. That's not a fire department,
No,
you know, as
no,
people
that's
think, but that's
under-
what we do, right?
That's
Because
what we
someone's
do.
got to do it.
Yep, and they need
Someone's
help.
got to do it, so we're
Yeah.
going to do it.
We're here to help, and there's no better calling than helping
Yep.
your fellow man, in my opinion.
That's why I saw photos the other day. The Spencer Fire Department's completely got water up to its doors. And that's, you know, you talk about living there for so many years. You probably know a lot of people. And Correctionville, you know, we're sending some people over there to, you know, Pedersen put out an email asking for volunteers to help, because their volunteers are just as exhausted as maybe some of
Well,
ours.
I actually got called by the commissioner and the fire marshal on Tuesday, and they said, "Hey, we know you. You know, they know me. Dan Wood worked under me back in the days, the fire marshal. You know, so he says, I don't know everybody up there, but do you need help? Do we need to get Central Iowa Fire Department's coming that way? You know, we're putting out the call." And I said, well, you know what, right now, we've seen, you know, we're Northwest Iowa. We take care of stuff, and we don't have the things and the issues some other places have, but like Rock Valley, okay, USAR was there. Our dive team was there. And now, like today, Sioux Center Fire's got an engine company there with 6 guys from 7 this morning till 7 tomorrow morning. And then Orange City's coming over with an engine company. They've been rotating between those communities up there, covering Rock Valley. Why? Rock Valley has no firemen right now. 14 of those guys lost their entire homes. 14 firefighters. So they're focused on getting that cleaned up and salvaging what they can. They don't have time to respond to an emergency. They have their own emergency. So I've seen that. Spencer, one of the pictures, Arnold's Park float boat parked and tied off in front of the station, floating at the front pad of the fire station. And then I see other pictures with their airboat there and everything. So Arnold's Park came down and helped. I think they pulled 383 people out of houses.
Wow.
Yeah. So everybody's coming together and doing that sort of thing and helping each other out, and it's good to see. I mean, it really is. But boy, you feel bad. You know, LeMars the other night. Oh boy, I'm nervous watching that water go to 29 feet and hoping we can keep our wastewater plant running. And I had 3 guys in the wastewater plant that I couldn't get to. The road had went under, and they had food, they had water, and I kept calling them about every 6 hours. And I told them, if that berm goes and that's coming in, don't drown in the basement of the wastewater plant. Get on the roof of the building, and we'll figure out a way to get to you. You know, scary. But yet we don't have anybody out of a house. Our wastewater plant kept running. Like I said, we dirtied the golf course and lost our little league fields, and our airport was down for a while. We got the runway open yesterday. Took tanker tenders out there. 10,000 gallons of water later, had that runway cleaned off so the jets could come in and planes could take off. We had Black Hawk helicopters coming into fuel, and so I'm getting calls from people. You need a Lowe's truck. They got Lowe's trucks down here. They're loading up, and you need a Lowe's truck of stuff. No, take it up north. Get it up there where they really need it. And I feel so bad. My house in Spencer that I lived in, the wall went in the basement, and it's trashed. It's gonna have to be torn out.
That's insane.
It hurts looking at it, but
it does.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. I guess for the listeners or people that listen to this that aren't from the area, because we might have people outside the area, these are like, what we're talking about is historic floods for northwest Iowa and stuff. Even Okoboji, the water levels up there, Spirit Lake, Rock Rapids, Rock Valley, everything coming down, Cherokee, Spencer, and then Hawarden, and then all the way down to the Big Sioux.
And now we got
Smithland, and
Rodney's underwater.
And you see it on the national news was down here and did something on the Big Sioux, which that was crested at an all-time record high, was just under, it was like what, 44.98
just under 45
feet, like 45 feet, which was like at levee failure, basically, is topping the levees along the Big Sioux. So, and we so you saw that, and then McCook Lake. And a catastrophic, that is straight out of a disaster movie. Like looking at the footage, right? And the things there.
It's like you're watching the movie 2012.
Yeah,
the earth caving in.
It literally looks like a Hollywood movie set out there, because it just the catastrophic damage. But and those people, and where do you, so there are a lot of people hurting and stuff. But just so that people realize and know that people are thinking about you. And I'm in Sergeant Bluff. Our house is dry. Our basement's dry. We had no problems down there. I feel so fortunate for that. And these people. We were out Sunday. We were on shift Sunday, and being at 8's in Riverside, so we went out about 4 different times, just checking Riverside, watching the water levels. We were down at the boat club. We were on River Drive
in the boat.
Yeah, like eventually
stuff like
we
that.
were. That's what we were in the boat on River Drive yesterday. But that was everything changed so fast on Sunday. That water was coming up a foot per hour. It was crazy that we would go at 9:30 at this is where the water was, and then we go and do some runs.
A foot per hour might not seem a lot, but it's covering such a big area, a foot an hour, horizontally and vertically.
So on LeMars, we were 9 foot above flood stage, historic. Right? Our water, when that surge hit, went up 4 foot in 14 minutes.
Wow.
And that's without levee breaking.
I'm sitting out on Highway 3 just west by the Little League fields, and I watch the water. That berm's set at 24 feet. Most of LeMars is mitigated at 26. So I knew it was going to go over that when they posted we were going to go to 25.8 or whatever, and we ended up going to 29 then. But I watched the fingers of water come over that berm, dike, and I was sitting there and I thought, wow. It's coming. It's coming hard. You can hear it. You can hear the roar
you can hear it,
of it coming, but you can't see it. And I'm sitting there on Highway 3, and this is a true story. All of a sudden, I look out the window, and the ground is moving because the mice and rats are coming out of the fields across the highway at a dead run. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of them. Yes, the Dreckman boys, they were trying to step as they went through the shop area. They're just running, and I said, well, that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Pied Piper.
And the next thing I know, I'm in water on Highway 3 on my car. Not very deep, but the water's on. And I look back, and the ball fields were full. And that was 14 minutes. That means that thing went up 4 foot in 14 minutes.
So you're talking for
How do you get
listeners
away from that?
listeners out there, you're not going to get away from that.
No.
So when we're walking house to house on Sunday and Monday, asking you, do you want to get out? Please get out next. If you see us out, the next time we come around, just get out. Because if that levee gives, you have no time to react. You're
no
dead.
time.
And we
you
can't
will
get you.
die.
And
And
we
now
can't
we
get you.
we have to come find bodies.
we
That's why
can't-
we're marking your
that's-
house.
Yeah, we can't
So we
get
know
you,
how
and
many
that's
bodies to
part
look
of the
for,
problem people
so.
don't understand. Or when they drive around the barricades.
Yeah.
So like yesterday, guys, they closed I-29 from the 880 split down by Council Bluffs all the way to Council Bluffs.
Yep.
And people are mad because guess what? There's no water on the road. And they're detouring them up to 80, and it's a 45-minute detour back down to Council Bluffs. But what people don't understand is if we let you on there and here it comes, you're not getting out of there.
No.
And so people are mad because the road is dry, but in less than 10 minutes, it could be 8 foot deep.
Yeah. And you're swept away in it.
And you're swept away.
That's
and
what
so
we were
In a
that's,
coffin in your car.
that's the difference people don't understand. So they get mad, but in the long run, be mad. I saved you. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, you're welcome.
That's a lot of, when we were Riverside this weekend, people, it's amazing. They have a lot of civil engineers. I didn't realize. It was kind of funny. We had a lot of people telling us they asked us, what's going to happen? I don't know.
I don't know how many times I heard, well, it's not as bad as it was in 52. And I go,
53.
well, they also have changed the levee 17 times since then
Right.
because of what's happened. And it keeps cresting.
50
It keeps breaking over. So
53 guys was the huge flood in Northwest Iowa.
That's my grandma was
And so
talking
they are
about.
comparing this, like Phil said, to that, but it's worse. Spencer water was 2 foot higher than what it was in 53.
Yeah.
And they said that would never, ever happen again. Ever.
Well,
And it went 2 foot higher.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah,
look at the
it did happen.
2011 flood on the, and people are like comparing it to 2011 or 15 and then 19 for this last flood, and the Big Sioux flood in 19, but the Missouri was 11.
Yep.
And that was crazy. But that was snow melt up in Montana coming through.
well, you
Gavins
get the
Point and
ice
everything. It
blocks
was
and
different.
jams. Yeah,
it was
there's different
and the water
factors.
in the Floyd and the Big Sioux down here, because it was backing up into there.
Yeah.
This was
Direct.
the Big Sioux
Yeah.
and all that rainwater, everything from up north coming down and filling that up, and then eventually dumping to the Missouri. So Missouri still
then it's a
high
really
right
bad
now.
feeling, when you're getting people out and they're leaving in their cars and the guy stops and says, they just started letting out at Gavin's because it was over the top of Gavin's Point.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
That's all coming down here
Well,
now,
they're
but
still
thank
doing
God.
that. They're still doing that today to
Did
try
they-
to not break a dam.
Yeah, so
Someplace.
You guys got a lot of water coming.
St. Paul.
Yes.
Then you see up
we
in
do.
Mankato.
Mankato.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Holy
But
hell.
that, but
they
that,
just went
that
around
one
it.
flows that goes down into the Mississippi. Though.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not good.
that's-
That's
Yes.
one of
But
that's
still,
one of the only rivers that
still,
flows
But
north.
that's why when the releases, that's why they release when they do, because so that doesn't happen because you can't control that anymore.
That's done.
Once
Yeah.
it goes around it or takes out the dam or takes out the levee, it's
done.
uncontrollable.
Yeah.
So at least it's a bad. It's the lesser of two evils, right?
Yeah,
it's
you gotta-
evil, it's evil versus evil you don't. At least I can control this flow. I can't control if it fails.
Sacrifice a little to save.
And it's
the
it's
greater.
a hard pill to swallow for everybody,
Yeah.
and it really is. It's awful. At the end of the day, Mother Nature's going to do what she wants.
That's
to
the
do,
worst part
and
about
we
it.
can't. And there's nothing.
Usually we're pretty good at controlling
Yeah,
situations.
I told
Nothing
everybody up
secret.
north. I said, "This isn't our water.
Yeah.
We didn't get any rain.
No.
Friday when they got the 8 inches up in Rock Valley and
Or like
17 in Sioux
17.
Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't get it. It just kept going around. This is LeMars just kept going around. And I'm like, good.
Yeah.
This is giving my river a chance to go down and dry things out before that hits here. And somebody says, "Oh, look at all." I said, "Yeah." And the funny thing is, it's not even our water.
Right.
It's everything from up north.
Yeah.
If we would have had rain ahead of that,
Yeah.
we probably would have lost a wastewater plant. And then all your mitigation and all your preparatory stuff
Yeah.
with dikes and berms and retention ponds is for naught, because everybody's basement's filling up with a different color water. And
Not
you're
the good
done.
kind, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the worst part up there for those folks I've been talking to is you can't flush a toilet. You can't drink water. You have no electricity. You have no gas. I mean, you have nothing. And then you look at your house and it's,
They start shutting off power in Riverside Sunday night, and you're
Yeah.
driving around in pitch black, and you're like hearing the roar of that big suit.
And
You're
it
like,
was
oh
the-
my
it was
god,
eerie out there,
velocity-
You're just like, oh man.
The sheer velocity of that water was incredible.
Yeah.
How fast it was flowing, and the people don't realize like that was supposed to happen. Like Wednesday was supposed. There was the original forecast that predicted Chris was
it picked
was
up speed,
Wednesday.
got here quicker.
And
Yeah,
and then
underestimated.
it started coming up a foot an hour, and they backed that crest like time back. And even on Sunday, like even every couple of hours, it gets going higher and shorter. Like when
When
the
you're
crest
getting
was coming,
told,
so it's like
we
not,
can't tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like
because it was
oh,
coming.
man.
It's again, it's
at the
it was
mercy
one
of
those things.
Mother
Well,
Nature.
Yeah.
Like Phil said, it's got to go. It's going to go south, and it's got to get there, and it's going to get there wherever way it wants to
Yep.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people asked me when we were out doing our checks and things of, well, what do you think, Chief? I said, well, I can fight a fire. I can tackle a bad guy, but a tornado or a flood, you got to let her do what she wants to do, and then when it's over,
Pick
Yeah.
up the pieces.
pick it up, clean it up.
afterwards. Yeah.
Because there's nothing you're going to do to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to divert it, but you're not stopping it. It's just going to go somewhere else then. I mean, it's just going to do what it wants to do.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, you can drown in 3 inches of moving water.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
I got called by Rock Valley at 4 a.m. that morning, and they said, do you know where we can get some bigger boats? Because that current, as you said, was so strong that they get out there in the little boats,
Oh,
Just take 'em.
gone until they got off of that current, and then they could work their way back up. I said, you got to call USAR.
Yeah.
You guys have done this before. You got to call USAR. You got to get some divers up there. It's the only way you're going to be able to
Yeah, because it's swift.
do
water. You
anything.
gotta
It's
have a
swift water.
Flood water's a whole
It's-
different animal than regular river.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's swift water rescue stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well, and so much
if
more.
you're not trained
debris
in that,
Yeah.
next thing you know, you're drowned or you're down the river 6 miles.
Yeah.
And I try to tell
whole
people,
different animal.
you're walking in 3 inches of water, a manhole cover gets let loose.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You're gone.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
No.
Yeah.
No stopping.
Yeah.
And if you're within 20 feet of that, you're getting sucked in.
Well, in
or
3
storm
inches,
drain.
in 3 inches of water, that's a 3-inch puddle of water that is
Yeah.
one thing. 3 inches
Moving
when it's
water.
and we're not talking, and it doesn't even have to be that much. It's it
Yeah,
could be
no.
just a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 miles per hour of water flow. When you've got tens of thousands of gallons of force behind that, or hundreds of thousands of gallons, even just a little bit at a 5 mile an hour, it'd take you off your feet.
And they're
That's like,
talking,
it's-
the Big
it's a
Sioux was
mountain.
moving at like 13 knots or something, and you're like,
that's
that's faster than the Missouri.
Well, you know
on a
what?
Fast day.
I was
you know?
able to see some things go down the river. So
Yeah.
the Alton fire chief called me, Quentin Van Ness, and he says, Chief, how you doing? I said, good. It's coming. I said, I know. He said, you're going to see about 20-some propane tanks because our trailer park flooded, our campground flooded. And he said, one of them's a 1,000-pound pig, great big one. And I said, well, I'm watching, and I've seen everything from cows to dumpsters to part of a box truck to propane tanks. I said, yeah, and they're moving.
Yeah.
They're moving in that flow and in that current. And it's like, boy, you wouldn't even want to try to grab them.
Yeah.
They're
No.
moving.
Yeah.
I'd never seen water like that. At one point, LeMars, all our entries into town were blocked.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
4 lane
either.
75, south 4 lane, and west on Highway 3, all closed. Water over them. It's unheard of.
Landlocked.
It's unheard of. Yeah, we were
You're on an
well.
island.
We could have went south and east out of town. That was our only way out.
Yeah, but see, and then like you said, and then with all that happening, so you have everything happening in LeMars. It's just like us with Sioux City. Now, fortunately, we're a big department. Could call in overtime. We got resources. We could do things, and we're covering Sioux City proper. And we didn't necessarily. We had a couple roads closed, but nothing too bad. But like you guys, when you're covered 200 rural miles, you still have to. You still got to respond. You still
Yeah.
got to go. Say,
So we
somebody's
had
still
to-
going to call.
Somebody's
and-
gotta go.
Yeah, we had to
Somebody's gotta
get
go.
trucks
And how
on
do
the
you-
other side of the water for a little while.
Yeah.
So we had stuff on both sides because to try to leave town and go out there, you're talking 20-minute circle.
Right. And you hope like
un-
there's no other roads that you come across on your way there
you
that
didn't
are
know.
underwater
Yeah.
that you didn't know about when you're trying to get
And
there, too,
actually,
right?
we did well. We had one car, like I said, drive into the water around the barricades, and we got them with a payloader bucket and got them out of there. he was worried about his car, and I said, well, you're going to write your car off. We
Sorry,
saved
buddy.
lives. I'm not going back out there.
As
to
it's spinning.
I'm not going back out there to
Sorry.
try to. The water was running in the windows. It's done anyway. I said, I'm not going back to get your car. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
other than that, it's been a good career. It's all I've ever known.
Yeah, it's life. It's a family business.
It's in the blood. Now my brother hated it.
Yeah,
We'd go to
that's
the fire
interesting.
station. He'd walk home. He ain't hanging out.
Yeah,
So it
Fox
got
talks
to the
about that.
point that some of the guys would take him an application just to mess with him, and he'd throw it away, and stuff. But yeah, he didn't want anything to do with it. So my dad always said, "I'm proud of both my boys. One followed in my footsteps, and the other one had the common sense not to." So, and my mom always looked at me and said, "You're just like your dad." And I don't know if that meant good or bad. I mean, she married him, but I don't know. I don't know how to read that when she said that. So it's like, I think she likes me, but maybe not. I don't know.
You said it said about 2 years left, so that would put you. Is that 55?
No, I've got about. I want to go till July of 27.
Okay.
So right at about 3, because hopefully by then I'll have that station done. So I had about 3 things left on my list. I had to get a ladder truck and an ambulance, and then this fire station. Of course, the staffing thing was on my list. We need about 12. And we're going to be at 11 in July. Here we're at 11, so we're getting closer because I want to have 3 duty guys a shift, plus then 3 chief officers during the day, and then at night I'd have 3 full-time people. That's the goal, especially having to run those medic rigs.
Yeah.
So you can have 2 guys in the back and 1 driving, so you're not 1-on-1. And anymore, you need help lifting, or people are bigger. So it's one of those things. So I got some staffing things I want to get done yet, and then that station. I could actually leave right now. I'm vested.
Oh yeah, you got enough years.
I got enough
pension
years, and I
systems
can. You want fries with that, Ben? I can go do whatever I need to do,
Yeah.
and then when I turn 55, draw 2 pensions, because my state pensions just froze because it did not match up with I'm in IPERS. So the nice thing was when I was in Spencer and I got made the assistant chief, I got a stipend, whatever, every year. That was enough to put me in IPERS. So when I came to LeMars, it was an IPERS job because that's what my dad was when he was the only full-time guy. And they said, so do you want to be 411 or do you want to be IPERS? And I'm like, well, I said, I already got my 411 because that's what my POR was with police officer retirement with the state fire marshal. I said, I've got 10 years in IPERS. If I can do 12 years, I'll have 22 in IPERS.
Yeah, soon.
And 20 with 411, so to speak, or POR. That's the way to do this. So I said, I'll take the protected class IPERS side, like a deputy sheriff, and it's based on your top 3 years of salary. And I've got 15. This is my 15th year in LeMars, so I've got 25 in IPERS right now. So I mean, I could walk away. And,
Very nice.
so when I leave, I'll have about 28 in IPERS, and then I'll have my other with the state. And it'd be a nice little take-home money a month if I can get his mom to quit buying shoes. We'll be fine.
And then,
Be able to buy a new Cadillac every year. That's why I had an old firefighter back home tell me it's like,
Oh, really?
You retire like dump it here. He said, set yourself up so you can buy a new Cadillac every year. when you
I'm not
retire.
going to be set up like that.
That's what it would be. What about like some of the throughout your career? I know you talked about the chief up in Spencer and stuff. That
Can we take a break?
so yeah, a couple more questions here.
Okay.
So you talked about your time left, but real quick, what's afterwards? Are you going to be able to separate entirely?
I don't know.
Yeah.
My dad, I watched struggle because he really had nothing planned.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, struggled to the point of not sleeping and things like that when I got to the job. But then he got involved with working on an old car, and he got really involved in the Legion. He's a veteran, and helping with the funerals and the flag folding. And now he's all in. He takes care of Vets Park. And I'm sitting there, well, I'm not any of that. So, I think just spending more time with family. I'm one of those guys, when I'm done, I'm going to have to walk completely away. And at the Florian Gala the other night, when I was down there, I sat with Chief Everett for a little bit, and that's when we were talking about maybe me helping with the next chief assessment and stuff. And I said, so, when you walk away, you're going, right? And he goes, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a little different when you're on a smaller volunteer department as chief and things, that you can hang around and still be on the fire department, and there's a new chief. And the one thing I will give my father credit for was when I got the job, he let me do the job. And I knew he was there if I needed him, and I had to call him because his file system, his file system was just absolutely terrible. So I'm like,
sticky notes and
where's this at? Yeah, because his computer was a pencil behind his ear.
Yep.
And everything went on a notepad and a 3-ring binder. So I get there and I've got 5,000 3-ring binders, and they're all labeled. And there's good stuff in them, RAGBRAI, some of those things you don't throw away. But he, his filing system. But I had to call him after the collapse at the parlor. We used our aerial ladder truck, Stokes basket, got the guy out of there and stuff, and OSHA showed up the next day. And they came to the station, and I'm like, hey, we just did the rescue. The guy was pretty cool, but he wanted to see UL test on the ladder truck, training records for the guys on the truck. And I've been there 3 days. Oh. So I'm calling my old man saying, I know you do this, but where is the UL test on Aerial 11? There's a 3-ring binder out in the other room behind this cupboard, and bam, there it is. Here you go, Mr. OSHA. And training records, I know we got them, but I don't know where they're at. I've been here 3 days, and so open the file drawer, and he was real good, and we didn't get cited for anything, and he told us good job. One thing that shocked me with that whole scenario was they had a scissors lift or a lift down there. I got in that and went up and went in the window and then sized it up, and I come back out and I had us bring our ladder truck down, and the guy told me if we would have used that lift to bring him down, it would have been like a $6,000-$7,000 fine. Wow. Because that's not set up for rescue, but that fire truck is, and tested and stress tested and all that. And I'm thinking, well, what would you have done if you were in some small town? I'd guarantee you if that thing's sitting there, that's how I'm bringing him down.
Me too. Yeah.
So anyway, it was a learning curve with some of that stuff, but the thing I'll say about my dad was he let me be the chief. And I changed some things. I've been in 5 different places, and I was comfortable, but not everything that I did in Spencer works in LeMars, and everything I did in Red Oak worked in Spencer, and Sioux Falls didn't work, here. So I might change something, and my dad would say, well, here's why we did it that way. And I'm like, I get it. I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm just saying this is the way I'm comfortable with it. But he didn't do much of that at all. He let me run the show and was in the background, and I'm going to have to walk away, and, not come back to things for a while, even if it's a pancake feed or whatever, because I don't want anybody to ever think that I'm second guessing what they're doing after me. Hopefully the next guy coming in picks up where I picked up and carries it on to the future and makes it better, and I'll be proud of that. My dad was the guy that was done June 30th, July 1st at midnight, and he was at the station until midnight.
I got to take a run with you and him.
Yeah, I was there. So I walked out to the app bay. He took his turnout gear off the rack, handed me the keys to the command car, and said, take care of my baby.
Yeah, pretty emotional moment for him, sure.
And I said, take the command car home. I have my own vehicle here, and I'm going to get a different command car. That's too little for me. But he had this little Blazer that was about the size of our Ranger, But anyway, he knows because I parked them side by side and took a picture. But anyway, he said, take care of my baby. I will. That's what I'm here for. I'm going to make it better from here. And he had given me a list. SOGs needed updated, and some standard operating guidelines and procedures needed updated. And he gave me a truck replacement schedule. Here's when things are due to be replaced. So you're going to have to think about budget. And, so he was very helpful that way. And it was kind of nice that it was my dad. And I will be there for the next chief if he needs me. But now that we have more rank and file and assistants that are full-time and things, they should be able to take that and run. But as far as plans, I think my wife has plans for me. But
I think you probably owe her a couple minutes.
My trick is I told her I'm retiring July 9th of 2027, and she says that's my birthday, and I said, yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah,
you get to keep working, and I'm retired. She didn't think that was funny, but just doing stuff with family, hopefully, and just being able to do some things that I haven't been able to do. You know, I don't hunt, I don't fish, I don't golf, just because of the time factor and always being on call. And, you know, back in the day when I was the only full-time guy, you were it. That's who the comm center's calling with a question or a small odor investigation or something. They're not toning 30 people out.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go do all those things. So I really didn't have time to do a lot of that other stuff. So, and now I've got grandkids, you know. We got 2 with Devin and 1 with Josie, so I get to maybe watch them grow up and go to some of their games and things that I missed of my own kids. I'm hoping to be around long enough to do some of that. So that's kind of my plans afterwards right now. Nothing as far as the fire service or any of that. It's time to, you know, maybe about 38, 39 years. It'd be time to just step away and
Hang the
Good
hat
for
out
you.
there.
yeah, do something different, you know, and get away from it completely. But I'll have to do something. I don't know if I'll drive a school bus or so. I'll do something to keep busy, but nothing as stressful as this. Mike Weiss, he says to me, if I do anything, I'm going to be like a maintenance 3 worker at a hospital where my biggest job is unplugging a toilet for the day.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, just take your frustrations out. If you can't get it, you call a plumber.
Yeah.
You know, he says that's the job I want.
Yeah.
No decisions really other than I'll just call a plumber.
Yep.
You know, don't have to make any serious decisions, life or death anymore, and decide who lives and who dies. Let's
good.
just work on a toilet.
I like that outlook. Seen a lot of people come in the fire service. You know, you said you get to know just about everyone. Advice you'd give to maybe some younger people or people getting into this career?
So get your certifications
Okay.
as soon as you can. Be working on those. And the service has changed over the years where you need more education. You know, a lot of departments now, if you want to be promoted, you got to have some kind of degree. You know, you never had to have that before. It was just kind of the OJT, you know, let's make him a lieutenant. He's been here 25 years, or he's been in a lot of fires, you know.
Yep.
So I would say work on certification stuff early on. Get something medically certified because that's the way it's going. I mean, when we talk about 85% of our calls are EMS type calls, yeah, that will get your foot in the door quicker than anything. And learn how to cook.
I like that. That's
You
really
know,
good
when
advice.
Devin applied in Fort Dodge, I said, if you tell them you can cook, they'll hire you. They don't care if you're a paramedic. You can cook, you're hired, you know, but on my shift. No, but I always make that joke, learn how to cook, you know, because you're going to have to.
I took that to heart so much. I did work in a restaurant for a long time.
It
So
was
I was
funny.
like,
It was funny. But yeah,
Four Brothers crew, right?
yeah,
That's
dude.
right, the old Four Brothers crew. Learn
Chef
how to
Boyard
cook.
Devin, you know.
Learn how
God,
to-
I'd say
learn
I
how to
miss
cook.
those high school jobs, though.
Do you?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, I never do.
Learn how to cook.
I did those so I know I didn't want to do that the rest of my life.
Right?
Yeah.
I was grill chief at McDonald's at 15 years
Oh,
old.
yeah.
Nice.
So I was a chief a long time ago back. Grill chief.
I remember-
Chef, chief, there's like one letter difference in
Yeah,
there.
you're good.
I can remember delivering pizzas for Godfathers and trying to like memorize the streets. Like I'm gonna be doing this someday. So
That's a good one.
it's
That's a
funny.
good way to do it.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, go deliver pizza. You'll learn. That's all the pro we should do. Is get a part-time job delivering
Lyft
for
or Uber
Jerry's,
Right.
or pizza delivery.
DoorDash.
Well, yeah, if you're gonna
There
be
were
driving
guys
the
on
district
Dodge that
anyways
did
and
that
stuff.
when I started there.
Yeah, Ubered and
That's
stuff,
how they
delivered
did
Uber,
no like
dude.
pizza
I always
delivery.
thought about doing that now. You know,
You're already
I
out.
got a command car. I just deliver pizzas.
Code 3
I know all the
pizza.
streets. I know all the streets and addresses. You know, make a little extra
God,
money.
Make some great tip. Maybe quick.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
30 minutes or less.
Yeah, piece of cake.
Yeah. What am I going to do with the other 28 minutes? Let's go.
Nice.
I like
So, little Schipper here, he wanted to hear some. I think he said something about some bomb stories. He got some good bombs, some good bomb stories, I guess. From
Ones I can tell. You know, the bomb stuff. You know, people say, "Oh, we're in Iowa." You know, we don't have those things. I did 1 or 2 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, just like I talked about earlier with the devices people had that came back from the wars, and you know, you get the family wanting to argue with you. You know, you'd be like, "Yeah, that's a live grenade, MK2 pineapple. You can't have that. That's the Are you saying Dad stole this?" And I'm like, "Well, it isn't like when you got honorably discharged, they handed you a box of grenades and said, thanks for your service. This is not his. This is still the military's ordinance. And yes, I'm taking it and you can't have it, you know. So you ran into some of those deals. Having the dogs was impressive. You know, they are so smart. And I had a Malinois and then I had a lab. The Malinois was a workhorse and he was all business. But he got so good I could walk into a school and take him off lead and tell him to search, but it was all German commands. And he'd go in one classroom and around and come out and down the hallway and into the next classroom and around. And he wouldn't eat anything. He wouldn't drink out of a toilet unless I told him to. I mean, he did his job, and he was impressive. And I remember one night, it was a Friday afternoon about 3 o'clock, and I got called, and they thought they had a pipe bomb on Highway 3 by Cherokee. And I'm like, and we had plans Friday night to go to the game, and, you know, Devin's playing football, and I'm like, man, here goes this one again, you know. So I head down to Cherokee, and I got the dog with me, and I pull up, and there's a deputy sitting there, and I'm thinking we have a lot of those PVC tubes that they put the registrations and stuff in that are on the trailers on the hitches, and they pop off from time to time, and they're laying along the road, but they look like a pipe bomb.
Yep.
So I'm thinking that's probably what it is on Highway 3, and I bounced off. And so I get out, and deputy's standing there, and I get the dog out, you know, and I'm like, I got a dog, so I can check this pretty quick without having to x-ray it or anything. And I go walking up there, and I'm nonchalant as hell. And you know, you get complacent at times, and you always have to remind yourself, even at fires, hey, focus, you know. And the dog hits hard. I mean, boom. And I went, what? And I looked at the deputy, and the deputy says, what's that mean? I said, well, that means he thinks it's real. And the deputy's like, I am out of here. And he gets in his car and drives down the road. And I'm like, dude, I called him. I said, you got to come back here, man. I need you to block the highway. We got to shut the highway off. I got to try to pick this thing up off the highway. So I had to have Cherokee Fire come out with some longer rope and stuff for me, and got the thing put in a bomb blanket and took it down to their wastewater site, and I blew the end off that. It was an actual pipe bomb.
Jeez.
And I looked at that dog and I thought, you probably just saved my butt, dude, because I was getting complacent. It was Friday night. I was not in the mood to be there. I missed my kid's game. I want to do it quick and get back if I can make some of the game. And I was like, wow. Now, that, you learn a lot from those, and you learn a lot from your animals that way. And after that, I respected that dog, and I trusted that dog because he saved my butt. One of the funniest things was when I came to LeMars, I was still teaching bomb classes. I mean, I came down here. I don't know, you were on that. I did all 3 shifts on explosive awareness, and I had a PowerPoint, and I was teaching for Iowa Central. And I did meth lab training for Sioux City Fire. I did their first meth lab here in town with them, a real one. And that was when they were coming up. But I was teaching classes all over. Well, when I came to LeMars, I had already had scheduled a couple classes, even though I wasn't going to be the fire marshal anymore. And one of them was down in Missouri, in Fairfax County at the hospital. And I took the wife with me, right? Now, she knows things, but she's going to watch this podcast, but she knows things, but she don't know things, okay? So we get down to this class, and I dig my cases out, and I'm pulling out grenades and sticks. They've all been rendered safe, like dynamite blasting caps, poor man's James Bond books. I got a finger in a jar from a kid that blew his fingers off. Well, he blew himself up. And Mom let me keep his finger in a jar of formaldehyde for a teaching tool. I mean, she was good about it. And so I'm doing this class for EMS and fire and nurses, and I'm passing these things around, and I'm not paying attention. I'm passing around, I'm doing my talk, how I get going, you know, and everybody's loving it, and it's this and that and this and that, and all of a sudden I catch a glimpse of this gal in the front row, my wife, like this, you know, like, and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot she was in here, you know, and I can just see her in her mind going, you have a finger of a kid in a jar, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a long ride back from Missouri, you know. So we did the class, and I told some stories, and I can see the face kind of looking, and I'm thinking, oh, no. So we get all done, and we're packing stuff in the car, and we get in the car, and it's pretty quiet. Crickets, you know. And we get headed up the road, and she looks over, and she says, you know what? I don't have to go to any more of your classes. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't even. And she goes, now, let me ask you one more question. You're not the fire marshal anymore, right? I said, well, no. Well, what happens if we get pulled over and you got all this stuff in your car? You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, you know, I really didn't think about that. I didn't really think about that. I said I'd have to explain that in talk my way out of that one of why there's
Got like
hand
3
grenades
anarchist
and
cookbooks and all
pipe
the
bombs and hand
stuff to make
grenades
this place go.
jar of ammo and and a finger in a jar.
Fester in the back.
Yeah,
some kid's finger in a jar.
Yeah,
Right?
so I'm thinking, I'll have to talk my way out of that one. I better not speed, take it easy going home. But she was one that, and even on the mental health side, guys, you got to find somebody to talk to. She's not it for me. She wants to be, but she can't be.
Yeah.
Because she goes to a totally different place than we go to, because we can't go to that place when we're doing the job. And what I mean by that is, if I go out to a car accident, or you guys roll up on a 1050 PI tonight or whatever, and you have somebody dead or trapped or whatever, and you do your job. My wife is sitting there going, I wonder if she kissed her mom goodbye this morning.
Yeah.
I wonder who's going to clean her room out now that she's dead. That's where my wife goes. And I was like, I never thought of that angle. So when we do this class and we go to these fire departments, my wife brings that side into it, which relates to a lot of the people in the room other than who I'm talking to, the guys that are responding.
Yeah, so you haven't really talked about that, though. He goes around and does mental health classes for departments now.
And
That's
so
part of, like,
it's good for me because it lets me clear my mind, because I struggle yet with things I've had to see and pick up and clean up and stuff. And it's just one more way of me relieving my stress and my story. But yet she brings in the other side of it that I don't get.
Yeah.
But I get, but I can't go there on a call. So I can't, she's not my out. She's not my out. So I have to use my dad or Devin or one of the guys at the station for my out and my release, because I can't go home and say, man, you should have seen this.
Yeah.
not the person to do
Not
that,
the person
but,
to tell that to. She's done. She's done. So, whoever's listening to this, find somebody to talk to. Find that person that, if he like the person that's going to text you, if you don't text back, he's going to call you. If you don't call him, he's going to show up at the house. Hey, why aren't you answering your phone? Find that person. And it might not be a fellow firefighter. It might be just a friend, or maybe it's a pastor or somebody. I don't care. Call me. My number's on the website. My phone number's, everybody has it. Call me. I'll talk to you. But we gotta take care of each other. And so on the bomb side, and the fire marshal side, I can remember I had 12 fatalities in like 3 months. And I went to Des Moines one time. Now, this is old school. And we were doing something, and Roy Marshall looked at me and he said, "You've had 12 fatalities in 3 months?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Geez, I probably should have got you some counseling." And we laughed about it. But in all honesty, you go to a call, you go to the next call. That fire department might have got their SIDS or debriefing stuff. I'm the fire marshal. I get in the car and I go to the next town and do it for the and do it again and do it again and do it again. And finally, it's like, well, yeah, this isn't right. I better find somebody to talk to a little bit, because you're seeing things you're not supposed to see. People aren't supposed to see that stuff.
Yeah.
So, on the bomb side, one of the ones I'll finish with was we were out getting rid of some school chemicals, which we used to just blow the hell out of those. And then EPA and DNR said, no, you can't be doing that anymore.
Oh, sorry, next time we'll do something different.
Yeah, so 2 stories of that. Mike Keefe and I, one of my mentors, and I look at Doug Duncan, my dad, Mike Keefe, Jim Kinkle, some of those guys that really helped me get to where I am, and I thank them immensely. We're up at West Lyon, Central Lyon School up here, and we're going to get rid of some school chemicals. So we go out across the football field, and we're down and over the hill and make a little bunker, and we're wrapping det cord and stuff around this stuff and C4, and we get boom, and that stuff just, and all of a sudden, it rattled so hard we set the fire alarm off in the school building.
Oh
and
my gosh.
now everybody's coming outside, and we're like, oh geez, and then pretty soon fire trucks are pulling up, and I'm like, yeah, that might have been a little too much, So we got in trouble for that.
Always add more. Remember, in detonation, you always add more.
Well, if a half pound's good, a pound's better. Right? So that was one. And then one of the other ones was we had a bunch of guys standing, and we were getting rid of some CO2 canisters that had ammonia in them for meth labs. And so we wrapped the thing with det cord, and we're sitting there, and I mean, we got fire department out there and everything else, and boom, white ammonia cloud, right? And we're standing there, and all of a sudden, I'm like, what the heck is that? And oh shit! Here it come! The canister come out of the cloud like a rocket over top of us, hit the fire truck behind us down the way, and hit the ground. And all those guys are standing there going, "What in the world?" And I said, "See, it's a good thing I had you stand here. We'd have been back by that truck. Somebody could have got hurt." Yeah, they razzed me a little bit about that. I said, "See, we were safe. We were up close. We'd have been back there. You would have got hit." And bounced off the ladder on the side of the fire truck and hit the ground. I was like, "Oh, oops." Well, those had a seam in them, and it must just ruptured that seam perfect, and that thing comes just like a missile.
Yeah.
But the cloud, we're just kind of standing there. All of a sudden, you see this black dot. It's like,
getting bigger.
What's that? I'm like, uh-oh. And over top of the wind, I'm like, oh, the truck. Bang. And everybody was freaked. Everybody's like, what? And I said, see, good thing we were standing here.
Kind of like the first time you played fireworks as a kid. You and your brothers just go a little too far with, okay, this is why Dad doesn't want us doing this.
Yeah, little
candles at each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got hundreds of bomb stories that, but rendering safe stuff, you take an oath. I took an oath, and one of the craziest things is, you're going to go up, and if you have to kill 2 people to save 100, that's what you got to do. And not everybody can say they could do that. That's a tough decision to make, or the decision who you extricate first, based on who's more viable than the other. I don't like having to play God, but I've had to do it so many times in my career. Those are tough days. Those are real tough days.
Yeah. I've never gotten out of the rig without at least 2 other people there, and sometimes more. And I'm at a lot of your calls. You were there for 5, 10 plus minutes waiting on your guys to get to the station, respond. One
of the worst ones I had was a girl pinned in a car, and I knew as soon as we spread it, she was going to die. She was crushed, but everything was being held.
Yeah.
And so I told one of the officers, I said, "Go get her dad. He's in town. Go get her dad. Bring him out here. I know him. Bring him out here." Again, the small town thing.
Yeah.
Got him out there, and I walked over to him. I said, "Listen, she's not going to make it." And he's like, "What? She's talking." I said, "She is right now." But I said, as soon as we get her out of the car, she's probably not going to make it. So I want to give you a chance to go up and say goodbye. He just looked at me. So he went up there and did his thing and spread the car apart, spread the seat. I mean, she was up against the steering wheel. Head went down, that was it. We had a helicopter there and everything, but to no avail. But I'll tell you what, every time I saw that guy, didn't matter where we were, he'd push through a crowd to come over and give me a hug. That's why you do the job. You get back on the rig because of stuff like that. So tough days, but good days too. Everybody always says, how many people have you saved in your career? I said, I don't know. I said, or they'll say, how many dead bodies have you picked up? Hundreds. I mean, I said, the number I remember right now is 22. And they're like, what's that? And I said, that's the people that were alive when we got there that we couldn't save. Now, if they're already gone when you get there, I don't count that. But when you get there and you're trying and you don't save them, that's the number I tend to remember, because that makes me want to be better. That makes me want to keep doing what I'm doing, because I don't want 23 or I don't want 24. And that's why you get back on the truck and do what you do. You know what I mean? And it's a thankless job. I mean, you do things for people and they're like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what I pay you. I'm a taxpayer. You're supposed to risk your life for me. It seems like sometimes people are that, but then other people are like the guy that's going to come up and hug you every time he sees you and thank you. And you have those too. So it balances out. It really does. But seen a lot over the years.
Absolutely.
A lot.
That's good for you, Dave. I think when we used to say kind of being an advocate for these younger guys and dealing with helping them deal with some of those things and stuff. I think that's what it's going to take. It's that culture shift in the fire service, because and even when I started, it was the same thing. Like, there just wasn't now, and I think it takes guys that have been on, 20 years, 30 years, that to lead the way to and adapt to that and help, and Schipp, being on the our peer support team and stuff.
People, the departments are forming teams now.
And it's an important thing, and it helps because it's going to help this next generation of firefighters just mentally have a healthier career. Because you or I, we could say we've got damage from not wearing SCBA. When I started, we didn't wear SCBAs on car fires. We had as soon as the fire was out, you dumped it off before you went and did overhaul.
Oh, I've done so many fires and went home and blew black out of my nose for 2 days.
Yeah, so I can say that.
I'm still back with the old rubber pull-up boots when I started. We didn't have turnout. We didn't have pants. Yeah. So how much, you had a gap between your coat and your top of your boot.
Yeah.
And they talk about carcinogens and smoke in your pants and into your skin.
Yeah.
All the time.
Right. So, between that and the mental health stuff and not having that, because we're going to carry that damage that was done. But I think as guys that have been on now, like our, kind of our legacy, or what we could do is we could just make it like our own kids at home, right? Yeah. You always try to make things better for your own kids than what you had. We're going to do that for this next generation of firefighters, make things better for them.
We hope so.
That they can be protected, wearing your SCB during overhaul and it being a norm and leading the way. As a captain,
you got to lead by example.
I should be doing it every time when I'm wearing overhaul, working and stuff, so that they'd be like, that's the thing to do. Protect that airway. If you had, talk to these young kids and just be a mentor to them.
Stories of what we did back in the day, even some of our newer guys that just went through Firefighter 1 or whatever, they're like, what?
Yeah. You can't even believe it.
What? You did what? Or, riding the tailboard, or all the things we did that, you can't do that anymore. No. If somebody fell off and cracked their head open one too many times off the back of a fire truck, you can't ride tailboard anymore. Everything's got to be in closed cab. Now clean cab. They're doing all kinds of stuff, which is all for good.
Yes.
It really is. It really is. But, I even date back to when I say, when I started fires, you had a shovel to dig the fire and you had a rope to jerk the bomb and see if it went off. It didn't go off. You threw it in your car and drove home. Things have changed so much over the years. But truly, we've learned from mistakes, and that's what we have to do. And one of the biggest mistakes was not taking care of each other on that way. Yeah. On the fire ground, we'll take care of each other. We'll risk our butts to save each other. We'll RIT team. We'll go in after you. But then on the other hand, on the mental health side, we weren't taking care of them. No. We weren't at all, and that's changing, which is a good thing. I always tell people it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. It doesn't make you weak.
No,
it's an emotion and stuff like that. And I remember my wife always saying, we'd do something would come up or something would happen, and I'd say something, and she'd go, "Well, you're just cold. You're just cold." And I said, "Well, I don't know if I'm cold. It's just you get used to it. I hate to say that, but you get rugged because of that to a point. But I still have feelings. I still have feelings. Yeah. Well, I married a saint. I'm sorry, I did, because I could never be married to me. Really, with the hours and the schedule, and one of those. I'll be home in 10 minutes, and it's a day later. That would get old. But
no, you over a good long retirement.
I hope so. I hope my health holds out. Because like we talk about all the things we did back in the day, and I see some of my fire marshal friends now with certain cancers and things, and I know why. And I was right beside them, so it's like, oh boy. Mm-hmm. But we got smarter as I was in the ranks. We started wearing APRs or masks when we were digging fires towards the end. Every meth lab I did, I put my equipment on. When we had to sign up initially to be on the meth lab team, you were supposed to sign that you weren't planning on having any more children and all this. And when you sign a form like that, you're like, what am I getting into? The state gives you a form like, hey, sign there. And I can remember a couple of times on ditch cleanups and stuff with propane tanks full of ammonia and gas generators and things that we had to bubble them off. And I put my SCB on, all my gear on. I didn't care if it was 105 degrees. I was putting all that on. And I had a deputy one time, and I won't say what county, but he's sitting there, and you can see like this as I'm getting all my stuff out. And I looked at him, and I says, "You got somewhere you got to be?" Well, I'm off at 4, and I said, well, if you got to go, go. But these are my lungs, and this is my life. And I said, I'm going to put all this stuff on. It's going to take me a little bit to clean this thing up, you know. You don't get it, I do, because hopefully I rectified all the bad things I did younger to save myself some age at the end here, you know. But if I didn't, you know, it is what it is. I've done a lot of things in my life and lived a good life and, you know, enjoyed what I could. But I'd like to see some grandkids for a while and stuff like that.
Absolutely deserve that.
Yeah. But I want to say thanks for you guys inviting me down and let me talk and tell my story. It's kind of interesting. I mean, there've been a couple news stories done on the Schipper thing, like the Trolbo thing, you know, with the history and the fire service in LeMars and stuff like that. And it's just you know, I'm proud of it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it should be.
It's a pretty cool deal to look back and see old photos of family members and stuff, and on the first fire truck or on the horses and things.
Yeah, I mean, like casually, you know, being good friends with Devin, you know, we'll go work out or whatever, and you'll tell me this story, and you're like, I just kind of brush it off. But yeah, these really are great stories. You know, you've had a hell of a career, some time yet to go, and thanks for joining us today. Thanks for taking the time. I think the guys, you know, people are gonna love this one, and it's always fascinating. You know, I'm sure we could sit here for another 6 hours.
Yeah.
We could never run out of stories.
We'd have to get some captain and some.
Yeah, we can do this again with some drinks and.
So
I don't really drink unless I'm alone or with somebody. So,
that'd be before the tones drop. Before we cut out though, we do have to couple things. We gotta plug two things. One, our next episode will be July 2nd. It's our live stream. So if anybody hasn't seen it yet on YouTube, we're gonna live stream on YouTube and Facebook. Is it gonna be on Facebook too? No, just a YouTube stream. Live stream on YouTube on Sioux City Fire Rescue's YouTube page where you can find all the podcasts. So that's going to be that's an exciting event. We're going to do it here. We're going to be talking about, which is our second part, is that our application period is opening July 1, right? July 1. Yep. Application period will open July 1 for Sioux City Fire. It'll be open for a couple months. So I tell you what, we've exhausted our current list. There will be retirements between now and then. So anybody's interested in coming on the fire service or coming on Sioux City Fire, no age. There is no age limit.
I got a chance.
Yeah. No. Yep.
Saying I got a chance.
If you're looking for some good information, just some changes. Go to our YouTube page or Facebook page, our Twitter and our Instagram right now, and we got some really cool testimonials on there right now of people that were in the regular workforce and just looking for a change and found change of purpose and fell in love with Sioux City Fire.
Found their calling.
Yeah, and if you're looking for something like that, you know, watch those videos, check these out. July 2nd, our live stream, we're going to be talking about questions. It's going to be live. It's a live stream and it's a live Q&A. So you get on the stream, you can type in, you can ask your questions while we're streaming. We'll try to answer everything we can about the hiring process, about coming on Sioux City Fire, about, you know, again, go back and listen to a lot of our podcasts, a lot of our episodes, because we talk a lot about all that stuff. But those are two big things that are coming up. So the application period starts July 1st. So SiouxCity.org. And on there, you can click on jobs available and stuff and find, once the applications open up, go to the fire department page, and on there, there's the links for getting to. They'll also be on our Facebook page, Instagram, and our Twitter. Again, and tune into our live stream on YouTube, July 2nd at 7 o'clock. From right here at the.
It'll be 7:15 by the time Phil shows up.
Yeah, probably.
Late.
No, okay.
He'd be dead here today.
Yeah.
Hey, easy. Yeah. I get one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Everyone gets one.
Okay.
This was my one, and I was like,
do we call this the before
I got to be fashionably late for you.
We call this here. So, but anyways, yeah. So, but thanks, Big Ships, Dave, for coming in. This was like it was a quick audible. So we appreciate you jumping in.
Well, I appreciate Sioux City Fire. I mean, you know, you back us up with hazmat and everything else, and you know, I've been down here and helped dig a few fires and things. So we gotta work together, and I appreciate the offer.
I love that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, Chief, thanks for coming. Brian, go ahead, drop tones for us, and we'll see you guys next week.